You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network.
Hello there and welcome back to Force Perspectives. I am your host, Michael Cohen, and joining me, as always, the illustrious Joe Hogan.
New year, new me, baby. How we doing?
Yeah, this is our first. This is the first Thunderquack podcast that I've recorded of 2024. I don't know if anybody else has recorded anything.
Okay.
Maybe there's a Wampa's Lair out there, which, by the way, Wampa's Lair now officially part of the Thunderquack Podcast Network. So go check them out.
Yay!
That brings us to presently 4 official Star Wars podcasts on the Thunderquack Network. You've got, of course, this one, Force Perspectives, Rebel Cells, which we should be back with fairly soon. We still haven't gotten a trailer for season 3 of Bad Batch, but fairly soon with season 3 of Bad Batch, the final season. And then obviously, as I've just mentioned, Wampa's Lair joining us now, and Star Wars the Saga continues with Tim, Kyle, and Paul. So
very nice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all of it. Thunderquack started with Star Wars. It started with Frontlines. I guess that technically makes it 5. I always kind of think of Rebel Cells as just like Frontlines Part 2, right? Like it's just renamed.
Yeah.
Although with Rebel Cells, I suppose we're now officially sort of in the third era of Rebel Cells with the current host lineup, but yeah, it's because we kind of got Frontlines, and then we've got kind of that Rebels and Resistance era of the Rebels podcast, which was Rebel Cell. Oh, sorry, it was the Rebels podcast for a little while, and then it was Rebel Cells for a little while, and now we're in that Bad Batch era.
Now the decline. I'm here.
I don't know. I think it's the best it's ever been, but so I guess technically five shows.
Jeez.
But
hey, remember when you were done with Star Wars podcasting?
I do remember when I was finished.
It was that was a weird 10 minutes.
You know, it made sense at the time. I like that was sort of like I had the whole plan. Amanda and I were gonna do that whole other podcast that was gonna be a much bigger project, and I wanted to devote all of my time to it, right? But then she bailed on me, Amanda. Jeez.
I don't know her, so I'm just saying things.
Yeah. She bailed on me on that one. So it was like, well, what am I gonna do? And honestly, I mean, like most of what has come is out of two things. One, I really enjoy podcasting with you, Joe. So that's how this is like Force Perspectives transformed into just you and me.
Oh, shucks.
And then B, I just like I wanted to keep it to like not griping about stuff, which is really difficult with Star Wars. We'll get to that in a second. But
I plan to. Don't worry, I'll do it for you.
But and that's where Perfect 10 came from, right? Is like, what's a podcast where all I have to talk about is things that are awesome and that I love. And so that's how Perfect 10 came about. But next episode of Perfect 10 will be me and Carl, actually, from the Wampa's Lair. I'm not 100% sure what we're going to talk about. I think actually we might be talking about John Mayer, which will be interesting.
Right.
Okay. Because that's the thing about Perfect 10 is that it doesn't have to be a movie or a TV show or even a video game. It can be literally like anything, right? That the guest considers a perfect 10. So yeah, I think that we're going to talk about a specific John Mayer album that he wants to talk about.
Okay.
So yeah, hopefully he'll sing at me And yeah, I'll make him bring his guitar.
I hope he does his Nickelback impression.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about a Star Wars, or the Star Wars, maybe all of the Star
A bunch of
Wars.
them.
But before we get into our main topic, which is going to be, we're gonna rank all of the duels in the Saga films. um which is actually, like, I distinguish that they're the Saga films, and then it occurs to me there aren't really any lightsaber fights in the non-Saga films, being that the non-Saga films are two movies, right? It's Rogue One and Solo. There's no lightsabers. Well, I guess there is a lightsaber in Rogue One at the very end, although I don't know. I don't really count that as part of the movie. It always feels weird to me. You get to the end, to the hallway scene. I'm like, this feels like a completely different film, but that's fine. But that film feels like a completely different film about 4 times throughout it. So, Rogue One review coming later. Solo has a lightsaber for all of 2 seconds, and it's in a hologram. So those ones don't count. But we're gonna get into all of the Saga films, all of the proper duels. Although there might be a little bit of debate on one of these and whether or not it is a proper lightsaber duel. But before we do that, I just really quickly want to address the nonsense that's been going on the internet lately, revolving around the Ray movie, right? So, for those of you who don't spend time on Twitter, congratulations, you win. Um, but for those of us who do, unfortunately, a lot of the Star Wars discourse, as it is referred to, has been dominated lately by the it's not even by Star Wars fans. Like, it's not even by people in the community, right? But more so by these conservative pundit talking heads, that want to just they're up bright and early at the crack of dawn, 2024, right at the beginning of the year, getting started on the campaign against the new Jedi Order film.
Gotta get those
um
clicks, man.
yeah, and I'm sorry, I need to bring up um the director's name, because I know it, but I don't know it. It's a difficult name to pronounce. Oh man, is this even gonna be on IMDb?
Is it like
Ray
Shireen
movie.
or
Yeah, I think it's Charmin. Yeah,
oh
Charmin
Sharmeen? Okay,
Obaid
Sharmeen.
Chinoy is the director, and video surfaced, and I say surfaced, video was dug up. Not that it needed to be dug up, but video was sort of pulled and completely removed from context recently, of her talking. John Stewart is interviewing her, which puts her in good company, because John Stewart interviewed George Lucas at Star Wars Celebration in 2010. And I was in the room for that, and it was
Ah,
amazing.
that's cool.
But John Stewart was interviewing her, and a couple of other women, um, and I think that this was sort of on the heels of a documentary that she had directed, and I basically, the quote, and I'll paraphrase it. I'm not going to pull it up exactly because it's nonsense. Nonsense in that, like, it has nothing to do with her Star Wars project. It has nothing to
Right.
do with anything present. But essentially, she was in jest, for sure, like in a humorous way, stating that, like, she loves to make men uncomfortable, right? And this was, again, in reference to a documentary that she had directed. I think it's the one that she won an Academy Award for, which was like a best documentary short. I need to, like, pull up the whole thing in order to to verify that. But yeah, like this woman is a very accomplished director,
Mm.
a very, very accomplished filmmaker. Just full stop. Like that's the end of that thought. That's the end of that sentence. And then be like good. I'm glad that she wants to make men uncomfortable. I think that we need to be made uncomfortable from time to time. I want to be challenged by stories. I want to be challenged by film. And I've said for a long time, Amanda and I on Thunderquack were uh, very fond of saying that that's the role of genre storytelling, right? Is to ask questions and put us in positions to sort of think about things in a new light, and part of that is being uncomfortable.
Mm.
And my interpretation of what uh, was being said in that interview was along those lines, but in reference to a documentary, obviously, but of like forcing you to sort of step outside of yourself, step outside of your own perspective, consider somebody else's life, and that is going to be uncomfortable for a lot of men, because of the way that our patriarchal society sort of, I mean, like, from my perspective, sort of babies men and lets us just sort of live in ignorant bliss, if that's what we choose to 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 experience, right? But I don't know it. I, for one, am so excited for a movie that is like central, focused around Ray, written and directed by a woman, with that perspective, because it is something that we do not have in Star Wars yet. So that's the thing that, that these sort of conservative talking point fax memos are highlighting, to go out to all the YouTubers, so that all the YouTubers know what clickbait nonsense to gripe about for the next 6 months. And that's all it is. Like this, it is literally just like I don't know.
Slow news week.
It's yes, absolutely slow news week. But there, it's like, not to get conspiracy theory nut job on it, but it feels often like these guys have meetings with one another. They have conversations and they go, okay, so how are we gonna do this? Like, what are we gonna target? And somebody's assistant found this clip and then like sent it around to all of the usual suspects, the Ben Shapiro's and Matt Walsh's, like these guys, right? And like with the notes, like with the talking point notes of like, this is how we're kicking off 2024. Like because it's an old clip, like it's not like it just happened. Like this is an
Yeah.
old clip
I think it's
from
like
from
8 years
years
old or
ago.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. um so it really does feel like a coordinated effort, to create a talking point. And I mean, like, hey, it works because here we are, we're talking about it, right? But I bring it up to sort of try and hopefully pull that curtain back a little bit for everybody, because I know that some of our listeners are I know that all of our listeners are good people. We have done a very good job of making sure that the bad actors are not welcome in this space. And you can call that gatekeeping if you want. I just call it like creating a community that I can be proud of. But I've made it very clear, if you don't like women in Star Wars, if you don't like people of color in Star Wars, if any of that sort of conversation, um, ruffles your feathers, then this isn't the podcast for you. Go listen to Star Wars Theory cry about Mark Hamill for 45 minutes. Like that exists. Go over there.
Yeah.
They're
That's
happy to
another
have you, and
weird.
we don't want you. So, but that's not who's listening to this podcast.
Right.
The people who are listening to this podcast are honest, good people. um but every once in a while, these I feel like these talking points can kind of get away from the obvious bad actors and start to show up in the mouths of some of the people that sort of ride the line. And so I just want to take an opportunity to be like, listen, this isn't a real thing. Like they're reacting to a movie that has not even been filmed yet, right? Like we haven't even started production on this. They are attributing a quote about a different project entirely, not even in the same medium really, because like a Star Wars movie and a short form documentary, not the same thing. That's like
And
being
like,
like, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
isn't this documentary about like women in the Middle East that have to deal with like honor killings and stuff like that? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I think it's okay to make the men who are oppressing them in the Middle East feel a little uncomfortable. You know what I
exactly,
mean? Like
exactly,
it's, and it
yeah,
shouldn't just be men in the Middle East, but you know what I'm saying? Like the actual context, which I'm not sure we got into. The actual context makes that quote even more like, "Oh yeah, I can totally get behind that."
yeah, yeah,
Because when I had heard it, of course, without the context, because that was the first thing, my thought was, well, I can kind of see both sides where on the one thing you just kind of want to escape in art, like life is stressful enough, there's enough pressure, you just kind of like at the end of the day you just want to like separate yourself from the stresses of you
hmm
know difficult things that make you uncomfortable, but at the same time, if it's making you uncomfortable and you're rejecting it and you don't want to deal with it, that kind of tells me that maybe you're in a little bit of denial, or something about it makes you feel yucky. There's a
yeah,
reason that it makes you feel yucky, and maybe you should think about why it makes you feel yucky. But then I heard the context and I was even more like, oh yeah, no, that makes even more sense to me now.
yeah,
Cool.
absolutely, yeah. So and it's my firm opinion that that is what something like Star Wars exists
Yes.
for,
Yes.
is to make like, because it's a safer place than a documentary, right? Like, or than something that's like a more of a dramatic I telling of a story, right? Like um here's an example from a few years ago. It's Star Wars related because it's got Kylo Ren in it. But the movie Marriage Story, right,
Oh man, movie's
with
great.
Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. It's a phenomenal film. It's so good. Laura Dern's in it as well. And it um it definitely made me uncomfortable watching it.
Hmm.
There's a
Yeah.
lot in that movie that made me uncomfortable. I mean, like the scene where they have their big fight in
Oh
his
my god.
apartment, and he punches the wall, and he's like, every day I wake up and I wish you were dead, and like that anger and stuff is like that definitely made me uncomfortable,
Mm.
because like that's very relatable. Like I think that a lot of men have sort of experienced that sort of, those moments of rage where you're like out of control, and you go like, because we're given permission to act that way in society, which is ridiculous, right? And that's the point of that movie, is to like point us in that direction and go like, this is, look at him, look at how out of control he is, he punches a hole in the wall. um this is like, he crosses a line, right?
Mhm.
And it, like, that's meant to make us feel uncomfortable, and but that's very real, and that's very like one to one. um I but then you flip over to Star Wars. I mean, like, Kylo Ren, like there's a reason why Adam Driver got cast to play that character in Marriage Story, right? And it's because like he's very good at portraying that kind of rage, right? That kind of like uncontrolled anger. That's a very Kylo Ren thing from like moment one with that character, right? Like from the very beginning, like the what girl, right? And just like slashing up the console and
Mhm.
just like all of that. But then that gives a, like, that's a little bit of distance, right? Because there's some humor in that, with the officer sort of like being like, oh my god, is Kylo Ren gonna kill me? We're thinking that he's
Right.
gonna
And they're
Darth
bad
Vader the
guys,
guy.
so that makes it
Yeah.
fun. Like, oh, okay, who cares if this guy gets stabbed?
But then also, like, The Last Jedi, I think Poe's entire storyline is very pointedly meant to make men uncomfortable with their sort of systemic baked in misogyny, right? Like, that's Admiral Holdo, Battle of whatever, the Chiron Belt, Admiral Holdo, and like Poe is sexist in those moments. Like, he is straight up like, but that's a pretty lady in a dress. Like that's not what I was expecting. I thought that Admiral Holdo was like a badass, right? Um, and then like his entire arc in that film is learning to deal with that, like his problems with women and authority, which, like, if you know anything about Poe's backstory, and I don't count the bad novelization, not I shouldn't say it's a bad novel, the novel that is built on a shaky foundation of the garbage treatment of Poe in The Rise of Skywalker, that he was a drug smuggler in his youth. But if you go to any of the stuff I features Shara Bay, his mother, any of those stories, like she was a badass woman in a position of authority, and you can only imagine what she was like to have as a mom.
Mm.
And why Poe might grow up with a bit of a chip on his shoulder about women with authority. Which I think is so funny, because I don't think that Ryan Johnson did that on purpose, because a lot of those stories didn't exist when he was writing The Last Jedi. But it's just funny how that like all works out for his character. It's like baked into his origin story that, like, yeah, he kind of grew up with a lot of women, with a lot of power, and then he has to like grapple with that. And it was something that, like, for me, again, like made me very uncomfortable the first 2 or 3 times that I watched The Last Jedi, until I realized exactly what you're talking about, is like it was making me uncomfortable. And then I had to look at it and go, why is this making me uncomfortable?
Mm.
And it's because I grew up around women in authority, and, like, my mom is a very strong woman that, like, doesn't take garbage from anybody. And so it's like there's I and then I sort of had to like go back through my history and go like, okay, yeah, here are all of the conflicts that I've had with women that are exactly the same as what Poe goes through in The Last Jedi. And I was like, huh, interesting. And it actually, like, it was a big part of the work that I had to do to be a better person. um that's the point. That's that's what stories are actually supposed to do, is that that's what a hero's journey is supposed to be. Although Ty and I really need to, like, we've had brief conversations about this, Ty from Wit and Folly. But I think that she and I need to like collaborate on this and really break it down. Poe, one of the reasons why people don't like Poe's story in The Last Jedi is because it is not a hero's journey. Because the hero's journey is very masculine coded, but what he goes through is actually a heroine's journey, and it's reconnecting with his feminine in order to become a leader, right? Because he's already a hero, right? He's a hero before we even meet him
Mm.
in The Force Awakens. So that's where Ryan Johnson looks at that character and goes, there's only one logical place to take this, is like, if he's already been on his hero's journey, he's already a hero. That's not what the rebellion needs. The rebellion needs leaders, or the resistance needs leaders. And so he takes him on this other journey in order to connect with his feminine, in order to be a better leader for the resistance, in order to take up the role that Leia was fulfilling, right? Like, which is at the end of the movie. What are you looking at me for? Follow him, right? Like, it's right there. And then Chris Terrio completely ignores it, and then Poe's like, why don't we both be general? And it's like, no, that's not how this was supposed to work. That's not. Oh my god. And I can only imagine how frustrated Oscar Isaac was with that. But I actually don't have to. If you go watch any of the press junkets from Tross, you can see how frustrated he was, with that, and the fact that they would not let him kiss Finn. Like, he just wanted to kiss John Boyega, and I don't blame him. But
I
anyways,
mean,
yeah. So anyways, all of that coming back in to say, with this Rey movie, I hope that what we get is a movie with some substance, with a message that challenges us a little bit, along with all of the other things that we expect a Star Wars movie to do, which is to have fun, to be full of humor, to be an escape, all of that stuff that you mentioned before. Of like, that's what we wanted to do. But the reason why Star Wars works and why we are here in the year 2024, um, decades after its release, still talking about it, still examining it. I mean, like, even like we are going to discuss all 9 films in the saga on this episode. And the reason why we can do that is because, on top of being brilliant, wonderful fantasy and escapism, the best Star Wars does have purpose. It does have meaning and a message, and deeper subtext to dig into. And so, yeah, like I like it can actually be both things. The original Star Wars was, right, it was total escapism, it was total fantasy and adventure, and it was also an allegory for the Vietnam War, and that painted the Americans as the bad guys. So, it can be both things. George excelled at it, and I think the best Star Wars projects that we've gotten, uh, in the Disney era, have been from creatives that understand that part of it. And like, yes, I'm including Andor in that, like, I like, which you guys know how I feel about Andor, but um it nails that part of it. It nails the aspect of, like, it is an adventure. Maybe fun isn't the right word, but it's like pulse pounding, and it definitely takes you on a ride, right? But it also has incredible deeper meaning to it, throughout. So you can't say that you don't want Star Wars with a message and then say that Andor is the best Star Wars, which, like it's a lot of these people who are saying, like, we don't want these politics in our Star Wars, are then turning around and going, like, Andor is the best Star Wars and everything should be like Andor. And it's like, Andor is actually the most political. It's like, that is actually, like, in my criticisms of it, that is actually one of them, is that it is very overtly political in a lot of ways. And it is too reflective of modern society and too reflective of the things that we are dealing with in terms of, like, authoritarianism, police brutality, lack of oversight, all, like, just the military industrial complex, all of this stuff, right? Like, it's very heavy handed with those things. But anyways, I it's all a smokescreen. This is all actually part of the lead up to, it's an election year, and that's what this is all actually a part of. And
Mhm.
so that's why I wanted to talk about it, is to just, like, sort of bring that part of it to light, of, like, it's okay to be in the discourse, but when you are in the discourse, be aware of why the discourse is happening, so that you can talk to the actual issue, which is not Charmin Obai Chinoy as a director, or her merits as a director. I mean, she directed 2 episodes of Miss Marvel that are, like, the best episodes of the series, and Miss Marvel is, for my money, the best Disney Plus show that Marvel has put out yet.
Oh, really?
Um,
Cool.
yeah, I mean, like, I love WandaVision and I love Loki, but I just feel like Miss Marvel, like I don't know, it just for me, and this is personal, right? But for me, it just hit all the notes that I really, really want to
Hmm.
get from the MCU, and introduced a character that I absolutely love. That's, like, one of my favorite characters in the franchise. So, and her episodes are phenomenal episodes. So, but this is not going to go away. It's going to continue. And I just want to sort of, like, put it out there that first off, the first Star Wars project, other than, like, its first Star Wars film directed by a woman, I think that is something that we should be supporting. I think that is something that we should all be behind, full stop, no matter what. Just like, on its surface, just that, right? um the other aspect of this is that I Charmin is Pakistani Canadian, And I think that that is, I mean, like the Canadian part of it is something that I am very proud of, but the Pakistani part I think is something that again, like we should be supporting. We should be sort of like forming a perimeter around this project and keeping the bad faith actors away from it, like at a distance, and let just to let the people at Disney and Lucasfilm know that, like, hey, this is actually a good choice. This is the right direction. Having diverse voices. It's not about um I what's affirmative action, right? What it's about is, like, let's be super clear about something with Star Wars. It has kind of stagnated in the last couple of years, right? It's a lot of the same voices, it's a lot of the same types of people telling stories in this sandbox. New voices will expand the types of stories that we get, which will make Star Wars better. And that doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be the best Star Wars movie. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it will definitely open it up and give us some new perspectives that we have not considered before. And that is a good thing for the longevity of Star Wars, and for there being more stories and not just rehashes of the same thing or remixes of stuff that we already know, which I think is a lot of what we've gotten. But I will point to one shining stellar example of this in Star Wars in recent years, and that is Star Wars Visions, right?
Mm.
There is so much about Star Wars Visions. I mean, like, you can love and hate all sorts of things about it because it is all over the map in terms of what it's bringing to Star Wars storytelling. Um, but it has created some incredible moments and some great stuff that has then been like adopted into larger Star Wars, right? So I think that that's like that it's just, that is art. I don't know, like that's sort of my close on it, is like that's art, that's the point, that's the purpose of it. And we should be supporting new voices and new perspectives coming in and expanding the art form that is Star Wars into exciting new areas. I think that that's important. um do you have anything that you want to add before we jump into the duels?
No, that's I agree. I look, I just want new good Star Wars.
Mhm.
And I think the more different perspectives we get, the better we're gonna eat. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So like, yeah, just make cool Star Wars, please. That's your job,
yeah,
Lucasfilm. Make cool Star Wars,
yeah.
and like that's it, man. I have
That
faith.
analogy is perfect, right? The better we're gonna eat, right? Like the more the more, because it's flavors, right? Like, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. um and here's something that I will put out there. I've said for a long time, I live in a very metropolitan city, as do you. You know,
Hmm.
we're coastal elites. But so we you and I have access to every type of cuisine
Oh yeah,
from
it's
anywhere in the
awesome.
world, right?
It's awesome.
Not everybody does, and I recognize that if you live in the Midwest, you probably don't have access to the variety they people like Joe and I do. But two things on that. That is why travel is so important.
Mm.
Like get out and travel, prioritize it. I know it's not easy for a lot of folks, but I do think that that is something that, like, you will be a better person for it. Um but I firmly believe that a lot of Islamophobia would disappear if you sat down
If
and
you
had
met a
some
Muslim,
shawarma. You know what I mean?
if you
Like, just
met a Muslim person,
like, oh my god,
yeah.
like a Pakistani Indian food, like, is like, it is some of the best food on the planet. And if you haven't experienced it, and there are slight distinctions between the two, but I but they're very similar. sort of just like almost like regional differences almost, right, like of similar dishes.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, like I I and then shawarma. I bring up shawarma. Shawarma is a thing where it's like, because you can have Pakistani shawarma, you can have Indian shawarma, you could have Lebanese shawarma, or like more Mediterranean style shawarma. Like if you've never been to like a falafel cart and had just literally pick anything, just pick anything and try it. Like some places you might hear it referred to as hero, like which is spelled gyro,
Mm.
gyro. But I or shawarma, or I doner is another term for it. And it's like like it is shawarma, like a doner, like a wrap, right, is like, it's one of the best things that you'll ever eat in your entire life. It just like, which like, I find it so funny because at the end of Avengers, when he's like, there's a shawarma
Yeah.
place, I don't know what it is, but I want to try it. And then the end of the movie is them sitting in the shawarma
Yeah.
place eating, and it's just like I Vancouver is just full. Like we have so many different types of shawarma that you could literally spend an entire weekend going to different places and not like experience the same, like similar but not the same thing. And I just, yeah, I think that if people just like experience that a lot of the Islamophobia, a lot of the racism towards people from the Middle East, I think would start to dissipate. um because yeah, if you I food is one of those things. It's beyond language. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
it can cross that cultural boundary, and then open us up to new things. And that way, that's like, that sort of thinking is the same sort of thinking that we bring to this stuff with Star Wars, where it's like, let somebody bring some new flavors in. And you know what, not everybody likes spicy, but some of us have been craving a little bit of spice in Star Wars, you know. So I yeah, I don't know, that I guess that's where we'll leave it. Is now I'm just hungry, now I just want shawarma.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Now I just want Indian food after thinking about it. What are we in the
Yeah.
mood for tonight?
And like, listen, if you've had a butter chicken, that's fine, I'm not going to throw any shade. Butter chicken is delicious. But like, go have a proper tikka masala, and then you will go like, you know what, butter chicken is like it butter chicken is to Indian food what Taco Bell is to Mexican food.
Yeah,
You
it's
know what I mean?
very
Like
safe
yeah, like
American white people food. Like
Taco Bell is fantastic, but and you're like, Tex-Mex is fantastic. I love Tex-Mex. I made Tex-Mex the other night for Crystal for her birthday because that's what she wanted. So like, I made tacos, and the white people taco night, ground beef, crunchy
yeah.
taco shells and all that. And I even made tater tots with it.
Ah,
Um, Mexi fries, as they would be called at a taco time. I don't know if you guys have taco time there,
we do
but
not. I have
okay.
not heard of Taco
Taco
Time.
time is like the Canadian Taco Bell, but
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, but like, go to a real Mexican place, get some reals. Not this is even different from a real, like an authentic Mexican place, but go get some street tacos. Oh my god, dude! Like, change your life. Some carnitas, with some chicharron on there. Oh my god, get out of town, you guys.
Dude, I am starving. It's killing me. I'm so hungry now.
The
Should eat
point
some
being
lunch.
that if all you do is go to Burger King and McDonald's and eat
Yeah.
hamburgers and French
Yeah.
fries, like, you are depriving yourself of a whole world of flavors that are incredible. And I love McDonald's, right? Burger King not so much, but I love McDonald's. Like, give me some chicken nuggets, give me a quarter pounder, like, whatever, dude. Like,
Dude, egg McMuffin. I don't
yeah,
care.
yeah.
Egg
Oh, dude,
McMuffin.
yeah. McDonald's breakfast,
Oh my
delicious, but
god.
like,
Hash
such,
browns? Oh my
yeah,
god.
such white people food, right? But like, and also there are these other things. Go out and try them. Yeah. I Awesome. Okay, I think we've made our point, and we've made ourselves super hungry. We interrupt this regularly scheduled episode of Forced Perspectives for breaking news. This dropped while we were recording this ridiculous, what was a 2 hour and 45-minute episode of the podcast, which is probably now a firm 3 hours. And at the point that you're listening to it, because this news drops while we were in the middle of recording, so we had to come back and talk about this because otherwise we can't talk about it for another 4 weeks. This is ridiculous. So the Lucasfilm and Star Wars just announced this morning that I'm just going to read the article. That's how I'm going to do it. The Mandalorian and Grogu journeys to the big screen. That's a weird sentence because the Mandalorian and Grogu is, I guess, the title right now of what will be a movie. The Mandalorian and Grogu are embarking on a new adventure to movie theaters. Directed by Jon Favreau and produced by Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy, and Dave Filoni, The Mandalorian and Grogu will go into production in 2024. I have loved telling stories set in the rich world that George Lucas created, said Favreau. The prospect of bringing the Mandalorian and his apprentice Grogu to the big screen is extremely exciting, he said specifically for this snippet. Sorry, that was me. That's not in the actual article. In another very tailored and canned piece of snippet soundbite, Kathleen Kennedy says Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have ushered into Star Wars two new and beloved characters on lunchboxes everywhere. And this new story is a perfect fit for the big screen, added Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm. Obviously, I'm doing a little bit of editorializing as I read this. The Mandalorian and Grogu will lead Lucasfilm's ongoing feature development slate, including films helmed by Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, who we have talked about on this episode, James Mangold, and Dave Filoni, who is also currently developing Ahsoka Season 2 among those in the works. This is the way. Just drop that in there. Just drop that in there. So that is both an official announcement of what I think a lot of us were suspecting, which is that the next time we see Mando and Grogu was going to be in a feature. I think there's been a lot of sort of back and forth online about that concept. So that's exciting. I mean, like Favreau directing it, I think that's great. I think this actually has the opportunity to be better than any of the seasons of The Mandalorian because Favreau makes really, really great movies. So being like a self-contained 2-ish hour story with these characters, I think will be really great. Very interesting because it feels like a little bit of a button on it. So it feels like a little bit of an end of these guys' story, but go ahead.
I mean, really, the question I have is at what was it, Celebration Europe? They announced 3 new films, right? One was the Rey movie, one was that like prequel Dawn of the Jedi one.
Yeah.
And then the third one was what sounded to me to be Filoni's movie, right? It was like the Avengers type, everybody comes together kind of movie.
That's what we thought. Yeah.
Is that this? Is this replacing that?
This is season 4 of Mando.
Okay, so this will be probably before we get that then.
Yeah. We're going to be watching this in the theater next year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Abrupt.
This is a fast track. This is Disney and Lucasfilm recognizing that they don't have any Star Wars movies ready to go and that this Rey thing is taking longer than they thought and it's going to be worth it, but it's probably not going to make it for Christmas 2025. That's that. I guarantee you, based on the language of this, the whole like the Mandalorian and Grogu will lead Lucasfilm's ongoing feature development slate, including blah blah blah. I hope that this doesn't mean that they are revisiting what has already been established for the Rey film, based on everything that we've talked about in this episode. All of this nonsense with these the conservative talking points about Star Wars not being for girls. But Yeah, I hope that this isn't reactionary. I hope it's not, but it feels very much like it is. Like this is like let's get something in the theater that we can count on, that we know. That's
Mm.
like a known quantity, that's guaranteed, that's going to make people happy. I think that they underestimate how obnoxious Star Wars fans are. Um and
I feel like by now they should know.
they definitely underestimate how bad the online discourse stuff has gotten. They will find a way to make this about like it's, as we talk about with the Ray movie, like it's not actually about the Ray movie. It's not actually about Charmin Obaid Chinoy. It is about the fact that it's an election year and they just need to polarize people. They just need people to fight, so that the gulf becomes wider. And yeah, so when it turns out that there's a character in this movie that is a droid that's non-binary, right, then it's gonna, oh, Star Wars is woke, right? Like they'll find anything. They'll be like, oh, how come they chose not to bring back this character? Luke Skywalker's not in it, and that means that they don't like men, right? If it doesn't matter what they do, they'll find a way to make this controversial, which is one of the frustrating things about the way that Disney and Lucasfilm react to this stuff. But I bet you anything that this means that the Ray movie is being pushed. Production will be late 2024, as opposed to what we were hearing, which was April. That was the expectation.
Okay.
This is going. This is being shot in place of season 4 of The Mandalorian, and I hope that what it is that it just came out like that. It was just the way that it worked out, right?
Yeah.
Like that this just made sense of like, well, we don't really have enough story left with these characters for a full season. If we do that, we're gonna end up having to, like, pad this and this and this out.
Yeah. Yeah.
um it might be that they're like, well, we want to do this and this with this story going forward, the overall story, right? But we need to get Din and Grogu to a certain place before that can happen.
Sure.
um
Yeah.
so let's make a movie. And and then I'm sure the conversation was, is this just on Disney Plus or is this going to be in the theaters? And I think that it just became a thing of like, we need to put a Star Wars movie in theaters for
Yeah.
Christmas next year. Like we are leaving money on the table by not having Star Wars movies in the theater, as Wonka cleans up, right? Godzilla minus one destroys the box office. And it's like, well, Godzilla minus one would not have been as successful as it was if there were a Star Wars movie in the theater to
Mm.
compete with it, right? Like, and I hate to say that. I'm so ecstatic about Godzilla and the success that it had. Um but that is a result of the fact that there was nothing in theaters this winter to compete with it, right? Like that is very much a perfect storm scenario for Godzilla, to be the biggest movie of December. I don't even think that's true. I think that Wonka definitely made more money than Godzilla, right? But I think that Disney is probably looking at that and going like, we are screwing ourselves,
Mm.
by not having a Star Wars movie in the theater. So just put anything big screen worthy. And I think then Jon Favreau was like, I can do that. That's easy. So that's my read on it.
Yeah. No. I mean, hard to say, but probably
Yeah.
a good assessment. What about this concept art? Do you think there's anything of value in it, or is it just like, we gotta toss them something, we gotta include something in the press release? So here,
Yeah.
have this little cool shot.
I don't think it's anything. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's something, but it's just concept art, right? Is this something that's actually in the movie? I don't know. Is this, yeah. Yeah, who knows? Who
Is
knows? I
this?
don't
Can
know.
you make out what kind of ship is this? Is this one of like the pirate ships or something like that? Or
I think it's the pirate ship.
okay, doesn't
I
look
think it
familiar to
is
me. I
because
gotta
the
rewatch
markings
that episode.
on the
Yeah.
nose of it look like the pirate ship.
Okay.
Let me bring up the Mando season 3 pirate. That's not how you spell pirate. Pirate ship. I think that's almost definitely. Oh no,
Oh.
no, maybe not.
Oh.
No,
Oh.
maybe something else. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. We got a couple other things this year that like we'll see how they play out.
Oh, true. Okay.
How
I
they
mean,
how
whatever.
they
Could just be new thing. New thing.
Din and Grogu are going to show up in Skeleton Crew.
You think
I
so?
think I already said that, right? I said that in our like
Maybe.
2024
Yeah.
look ahead
Yeah.
that I expect that
Possible.
to be the case.
Because it is like it does tie together with
Yeah,
everything else, right?
with the pirates. Yeah, yeah.
So.
This ship does look familiar to me though.
Yeah, like it's the wing and the cannon in the back are throwing me off.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen it in one of these shows.
Is that a cannon in the back or is that the bridge? I don't know. I can't tell. It's hard
It
to
looks
tell.
like
It's
a
hard to make
cannon
out
to
what
me,
this
man.
is.
I don't know what the hell.
But anyways, yeah, I mean, like I think the bigger thing on this is Ahsoka season 2.
Yeah,
Like
that's
them full of
just
like
like
them
kind
just
of
sort of like shadow dropping that
tucked in
one,
there.
and not giving it its own announcement. But that's fine. That's fine.
I mean, we all knew, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they how could they not with the way season 1 ended?
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to kind of keep our eyes peeled on this one and see where it goes. But it this
So
isn't surprising to me.
so Dave is producing this movie,
Yeah,
developing Ahsoka season 2, and directing his own movie.
yeah.
Busy man.
I think his movie is the thing that'll bring everything together, right? His
Yeah, the
movie is going to
Avengers,
be
yeah.
like the heir to the
Yeah.
empire,
Yeah.
Thrawn thing, and I think that this has nothing to do, not nothing to do with,
Mhm.
but
Well, like you said, it'll set up Din and Grogu for whatever.
yeah,
I don't know if we'll get season 4 before we get that movie. Who knows? But
yeah.
will there
I
be a
think
season 4 now?
I think this is the end of the Mandalorian.
Okay.
Right? I don't think it's the end of the characters. I
Sure,
think that
but
Din and
like
Grogu will
the
be able to
series,
show up
yeah.
on other things.
Sure.
But I think in terms of like a story centrally focused around the two of them, I think that this is going to be meant to be like a button on the end of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that Filoni movie, man. Because, like, there's going to be that moment where all the Avengers assemble, and I'm going to be freaking out when that happens. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, man, I was thinking about it the other day, and it's just like, where's Cobb? Where is he? What's he up
Oh,
to?
man. Is he all right? Is he
Yeah.
safe?
Is
all
he
right?
safe? Yeah, and Boba and Fennec and
Fennec.
Chrysanthemum and all of that, right? I mean,
Ahsoka,
like,
Ezra, Sabine, like, Hera.
yeah,
Imagine getting everybody together. Luke and Leia will probably show up. Like,
yeah,
this
maybe.
is the moment to have everybody. Oh, man.
You just have to ask the question of whether or not they're gonna CG AI them or
Just
if
bring
they can
Sebastian in.
just cast someone as these characters. Just let somebody else play the characters.
Well, I think because it's the movie, they might just do it. Like, they might just do the CGI because it's like the movie. But maybe, hopefully, moving forward, if Luke shows up as a regular, they'll just recast. I don't know. I'm just speculating. I feel like for movies, they always go a little bit bigger. I mean, maybe I'm just basing that off of like Clone Wars, but like I think about the Clone Wars movie where they spent the money and they got Samuel L. Jackson and Christopher Lee to do the voices in Clone Wars, even though they weren't doing the Clone Wars voices in the show.
Yeah.
Or like Siege of Mandalore Clone Wars is a little bit more special, so let's get is that what it was? I'm trying to think of it. Was Ian McDermott did the voice. I think it was Siege of Mandalore. Ian McDermott did the voice in the last few episodes of Clone Wars.
Yeah. I
They
think
got
that
him for the end of
just
Rebels.
been necessary,
Yeah,
right?
they got him for the end of Rebels too. Yeah.
Because first we had Ian Abercrombie, and then he passed away, and then we brought in Tim
Right.
Curry,
He
and
had a
then Tim
stroke.
Curry's had he's still thankfully with us, but not in great health, and not able to perform. So, I think it became a thing of necessity. Yeah, other than getting Sam Witwer to do it, but. Yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. It's not a lot of information at the moment. This is just kind of a non-announcement. I think this is just
Cool,
them
though.
knowing that there's this other stuff going on in the news cycle right now, and they want to control things a little bit. So
I hope this movie comes out. I feel it will, because Rogue Squadron, Uh, who knows what's going on with what's his name? Taika Waititi.
Yeah. Oh, Taika's movie's not happening. It's not gonna happen.
Ryan's trilogy, D and
Yeah.
D's trilogy.
Well,
I don't know,
we
man.
know that they're out, right?
No, I
Like,
know. Well,
but
that's what I'm saying. Like they
yeah,
announced the movie and then that's
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
It's gone before
I
you know
think
anything else.
this one
Yeah,
is a for
this
sure thing
a
because it's
safe
like
bet. Yeah,
it's in the bag, right?
yeah.
Like,
If they're starting it this year, it's pretty
yeah,
safe.
yeah. I think this was just getting out ahead of um production actually starting. Like I think that this
Sure.
will probably be like a March April production start, which means that like people are booked, which means that like people will know that like, oh, you know what, here's the big thing. Pedro Pascal actually show up for this one? Will we actually see his face again? We better.
Mm,
I think we will if it's a movie. I don't know.
yeah,
It depends on I care less about the fact that it's a theatrical release. I care more about the budget. Are
yeah,
you guys
true.
funding this like an actual theatrical release, or is this a
Yeah,
Clone Wars 2008 situation
right.
of like this was made for TV, but you guys are just gonna put it out in the theater?
I mean,
Um,
I'll be honest, man. A lot of these episodes that we get on these shows feel like they belong in a theater.
oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not too worried about that.
The quality is not an issue for me,
Mm,
but the budget is the question, right? Because a bigger budget allows you to do certain things.
sure.
And so yeah, I'm just curious about that of like, and that's like the biggest part of that is can you afford to tie Pedro Pascal up for 3 months, right? Because he is one of the most in demand actors on the planet right now.
Mm,
So, and that's why he's not in season 3, right? That's why it's just his voice because you can get him for a weekend, but you can't get him for 3 months.
no.
So
Uh,
that's it. That's the
quick
question.
quick question. In production, does that mean writing is starting, or are they actually like stuff
No,
moving
in
now?
production means filming.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be sometime this year.
What
But
is writing pre-production?
yeah, writing is part of pre production.
Okay.
I mean, writing is writing. Writing can happen before pre pro, right? Like,
Oh, can it? I don't know. I don't know what
yeah.
the technical terms are.
Well, because you
So
can write a movie before a movie's even been greenlit,
yeah,
right?
I guess
Like
that's fair.
so,
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
writing can start before anything else has even happened. But Star Wars is funny in that way. It's not normal, right? Like Star Wars, Avatar, Marvel, like these things that are bigger than the industry themselves. They don't tend to fit into those molds necessarily because like
Mm,
we know that the Force Awakens, you crack open that concept art book, and there's stuff in there that was like Michael Arndt hadn't even decided anything. The only thing they knew was, we're gonna have a female protagonist, right? And so like he's just like or not he, others are just like, this would be cool. And the concept artist wrote half that movie before the movie was written, right? Because they just like came up with cool stuff. And then JJ Abrams came in, looked at stuff and went, well, we're definitely doing that. We're definitely doing that. And then Lawrence Kasdan put together a story based on a bunch of that stuff, like the Jedi Killer stuff and whatever,
mm,
right? Like, yeah. So Star Wars doesn't necessarily fit the standard
sure.
production timeline, but also like what you're doing is you're shifting a television production schedule that's not even a regular television production schedule because it is Star Wars, it's Mando, right? So it's like they're kind of just doing what they want to do, how they want to do it. And I think that's kind of been the success of it. I think that it's been a bit of a hybrid. So I think it's just sort of shifting it back a little bit more towards a feature production. But hopefully it just means that like it's take a little bit more time with certain things. But I think that this is a fast track move, like I said, right? So this is what we already have everything we need, right? Like we all like we don't have to go out and cast a bunch of people. We don't have to um there's not a bunch of sets to build, right? Like we'll use the same techniques that we've done. But I don't know, like I said, it budget is the big question here. If they have a feature film budget and they're shooting a 2 to 2.5 hour movie out of Mando, right? Like maybe we can actually get some location shooting. Maybe we can actually get like a set built
Yeah, I was
of
wondering if
something
this was going to be
real.
the volume
Yeah.
or like actual, set pieces.
But if it's meant to be a fast track, then they might just be going like, John,
Yeah,
can you shoot a movie on the volume?
yeah.
Right? Like, can we get something out for Christmas 2025? That's, yeah. I mean, I think they'd like to have something for Christmas this year, but I don't think that's doable.
Here's
Right?
a quick question. I mean, I say quick question, but who
Yeah.
knows? Um, do you think this will be a standalone movie, or do you think this will tie up some plot stuff? Like, for example, do you think we're gonna get Gideon, or do you think we're gonna have some new bad guy threats, whatever? That we can take this out in this movie, just so anyone who hasn't watched The Mandalorian can just go into the theater and just watch this little
Yeah.
adventure and not be confused.
Well, where are we at the end of season 3, right? The end of season 3, we had a big fight with Gideon on Mandalore and we destroyed the Imperial base, right?
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, the Mandalorians are all now going to return to Mandalore, right? That kind of is that kind of where we felt like we were left off. Is that like,
Yeah, because they were in the hall, right?
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah, underneath, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
she was
So,
sort of like officially made the leader and all of that stuff,
but
right?
also shortly before that, just a few episodes before that, Grief basically said, "Oh, you guys are here now. This is New Mandalore
Yeah,
if you want it."
yeah,
So I don't know. I don't know where all that left off. But Grogu and Din they have their own place,
yeah.
and they're
Their
you
little
know
homestead.
yeah they're
So
freelancers now, contractors for the
I
for the Republic.
think we will see. I don't. I think that we will see a time jump. I don't think
Okay.
that this will be immediate.
Okay.
I think that a few years will have passed. Which is why I like that ending of season 3. I was like that's what this is. This is Grogu needs to grow up now, right? Like
Okay.
he can't be a mute puppet forever. He needs to be a real character now. So I think that what we'll see when we come back, I don't think this concept art, now that we're talking about it, I don't think this concept art has anything to do with anything. Because I think that the big thing will be this isn't the Mandalorian the movie. This is the Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah. Yeah. Grogu's in the title, so
It's this has to be the glow up. This
yeah.
has to be. It has to be. And it's time, right? Like we need him with his little everybody draws him the same way when they do the concept art. He's got like spindly legs and like a mohawk sort of like faux hawk sort of hairdo. Like we got to get it. We got to get teenage Grogu. I think that that's the right way to go with this. And I think like you introduce him in the movie and that way you can have like whatever's going, you give yourself room for Ahsoka, right? Ahsoka is in another season, is another 2 seasons, I don't know, right? But you give yourself some room because Ahsoka is not going to come out until 2025 at the soonest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we'll get Acolyte, we'll get Skeleton Crew. Now I'm talking myself out of it. I don't think we will see Din and Grogu and Skeleton Crew. We need time away from them if
Mm.
this is what they're going to do, right?
Well, we're gonna see somebody to
We'll
tie
see
them
somebody.
into.
Maybe we'll see the Mandalorians. Maybe we'll see Bo, or maybe we'll see Boba. We'll see Chrysanthemum. Let's see Chrysanthemum. I want to see Boba and
What?
Chrysanthemum.
I
But
mean, that'd be cool.
yeah,
Unexpected, but cool.
Fennec is almost like that's the easiest one. I think you could just have Fennec
Mm.
show up because you can just get Ming-Na in there and she'll just crush like she always does. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think you got to give yourself a couple of years to let Ahsoka play out some of the stuff that's going to happen because the Imperial Remnant has to sort of like build its strength and Thrawn has to like put his plan into action. We have to see that. I don't think because you can't just have Thrawn come back and then go right into the big movie. I think that Thrawn has to do a few things and cause some trouble.
Yeah.
And we have to see the New Republic ignore it some more. Like we need to see them really like screw the pooch on it in order for us to have what we're talking about, right? Because this is all we're talking about, building towards Dave's Avengers. There are more of us moment, right? Because what it has to be is it has to be Din and Grogu, Boba, and the most Isley, most Espa crew, right? Um, the skeleton crew, who are already a crew, they'll factor into this somehow, and then Ahsoka and the Ghost, right? Like all of that's everybody that's going to come together. I really don't think that Luke and Leia will have anything to do with it.
I think there will. Honestly, I think if ever there was ever an event to bring them in, like this is it. Maybe even Han, honestly.
Then, but here's the thing.
I
If
know what
you're
you're gonna say. You want
if you
Alden.
if you're gonna bring Han into it and it's gonna be young, you got to bring in Alden.
Yeah.
It has to
I'm
be.
down. I'm cool with it.
And if you do that, like here's the thing: if you do that, two things can happen there. You bring Alden in, you can bring Kira back, which would be rad. If Kira shows up like at the end of Skeleton Crew or something, right? Like all this pirate stuff, and then it's like Crimson Dawn, like she's still leading Crimson Dawn and whatever. Because as of right now in the continuity, she's just out there somewhere, right? Like there's some stuff between Empire and Jedi that intersects, but I don't think that there's any finality on her story. So bring her back, bring Alden in,
Bring
and
Donald
then
Glover. Let's go.
and Donald Glover and recast Luke and Leia with new actors, because if
Yeah,
we've got
do it.
Alden
Do it.
and Donald in there, right, as different versions of those characters, then now logically we have to have Sebastian Stan as Luke.
Yeah, do
And
it.
I don't know who we get in there
Millie
as
Bobby
Leia.
Brown. Everybody wants.
I don't know.
Probably too young, but
She's still too young, but
age
yeah,
her up. That's fine.
you got to get somebody in there as Leia, right?
Get Chewie in there. Let's go. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
Well,
This would be
Chewie's
amazing.
easy. Yeah, but yeah.
Oh no,
and then
I really want this. We're not gonna get this.
and then you
They're
end
not gonna
that
go that hard.
you end that movie.
I do
You end
think
that
Luke and
movie
Leia.
with some New Republic stuff, right? It's like if you've got it. Listen, in this world, you've got Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, alongside Hera, Ezra.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh
Rex.
god.
Oh my god.
And Ahsoka and Rex. You got all these characters on screen together, and
Oh
then
my God.
the very end of the movie is just like they're like, we did it. We stopped Thrawn once and for all. He's dead. Like we saw him die. Like he's dead. He's definitely for sure dead. Can't believe he brought back a clone Jedi, and then I had to fight him. He cloned me, and Mara Jade's standing there, and you're like, where'd this character come from? And then the door, like they're all standing. It's like home one sort of thing. Like it's like one of those types of rooms or whatever. They're all standing around like, we did it. We saved the day. There's some Ewok music playing or whatever. And then like the door opens and little Ben Solo comes running. He's like, hey, you did it, Dad. Right. And
Oh my God.
jumps into Alden's arms.
I'm
and we're
not
just
ready.
like, that's Star Wars, man. That
Oh
would
my
be such a
God.
happy ending Star Wars of like oh, so there was a trilogy in between.
Oh my
There
God.
something did happen and
God,
had
Mark,
a
we're
happy
not gonna
ending.
get this, and I want it so bad now. We're not
Right?
gonna get this.
I'll just go write the fanfic, I guess.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like that's like it's like the Ewok celebration music is playing and everybody's staring down the barrel of the camera and we're like, wow, what a great ending. And then it like fades to black and then it fades up and it fades up on Mirror Dathan and Little Ray, and it's like the like them leaving her. It's like that's where we're at. I don't know if that works for the timeline. Where would that be? When is that?
No, I think we'd still be.
Remember that I've put a time jump in here for Mando and Grogu.
True, yeah. Oh yeah, I don't know. Well, how old is little baby Ben? So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. He's born
He's
like
a little older, right?
He's born older. Like almost immediately after Return of the Jedi. So he's a little kid.
So he's like 30
at this point in the story.
I think he's like 10 years older than Rey then. Because isn't it 30 years after?
Something like that. Anyways, Star Wars.
Know. So Mandalorian movie. Mandalorian and Grogu. Movie. Cool. All right.
Yeah. Get your hopes up.
I'm down. Oh yeah. Now I am at a fever pitch for this Filoni movie.
Yeah,
Hype.
everybody get really excited so that we can all be really disappointed.
There you go.
Cool.
This is the way.
Now back to your regularly scheduled Force
Yeah.
Perspectives. Enjoy our lightsaber rankings. Let's jump into our official Force Perspectives 2024 lightsaber
man.
duel rankings. I'm gonna run down the list really quick just so that
Okay.
everybody has the full list. We have 21 duels on this. Most of them I think are going to be pretty straightforward. One of them is slightly controversial, and we'll get to that.
And we're not including any TV duels, right? This is just the film.
This is just movies. Okay. So and it is just the 9 Saga films,
okay.
Episodes 1 to 9. So starting, I'm going to go in chronological order.
Okay.
I from Episode 1 to Episode 9. So we've got Episode 1, Qui-Gon versus Maul on Tatooine. We've got Episode 1, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Maul on Naboo. In Episode 2, we've got Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku. And then we have Yoda versus Dooku, both on Geonosis. In Episode 3, we have Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku on the Invisible Hand. And then we have Obi-Wan versus Grievous on Utapau, Yoda versus Palpatine on Coruscant, and Obi-Wan versus Anakin on Mustafar. Jumping into the original trilogy, we have in Episode 4, Obi-Wan versus Vader on the Death Star. There are not that many lightsaber duels in the original trilogy. Blink and you'll miss them. Episode 5, Luke versus Vader on Bespin. Episode 6, Luke versus Vader on the second Death Star. And then we get into the sequel trilogy. This is the one that I think might be a little bit controversial for people, but I do consider this a lightsaber duel. Even though one of the weapons here is not actually technically a lightsaber. Finn versus FN 2199 on Takodana, the traitor duel. Finn versus Kylo on Starkiller Base, and I've broken these out. I've distinguished these two because I think that they are two separate duels, right? Mm-hmm. And then Rey versus Kylo on Starkiller Base. And then when we get into Episode 8. We get into The Last Jedi. We've got Rey versus Luke on Octo. Again, only one lightsaber involved, but a duel. Rey and Kylo versus the Praetorians on the Supremacy. Luke versus Kylo on Crate. Which see, this is what, man, we get. It's weird territory. It's weird territory when we're in the sequels. I love it. And then we get into Episode 9, where we just really have Rey and Kylo fight a whole bunch. Rey versus Kylo on Kijimi / I don't remember the name of his ship. I didn't look it up, but they're in both places. But it's Kijimi is the location. And then we have Rey versus Kylo on Kefbir, in the ruins of the second Death Star. Then we have Ben versus the Knights of Ren on Exegol, and then we have the Dyad versus Palpatine on Exegol. So those are our 21. I don't really know how to tackle this.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah,
like,
other than
as
to
you were
just sort
listening,
of,
I was like, I like most of these.
Yeah. Oh no, they're all fantastic, right? So just to pull back the curtain, we've got we're using an app called Trello where you can put cards in a list, and so we've got all the cards. And so what I'm going to do is I've got all of them in one list and sort of in one column, and we'll sort of pull them over, I think, as we go through here.
Do they pull, like, because I'm looking at it too. If you pull it, will I see it?
Yeah, it should update. It should update immediately. Okay, I'm just gonna title that ranking. There, you should see the new column now. Yep. Okay, so let's literally just start pulling them in. So I'm gonna put, obviously, in the number 1 spot, because we're just starting, is gonna be Qui-Gon versus Maul. But let's bring over Duel of the Fates. Duel of the Fates beats out the Qui-Gon versus Maul fight.
Yeah, that's
right?
pretty safe.
Okay. Also, by the way, one of the reasons why we're talking about this is because there was a tweet last week, somebody posting yet another YouTuber, just a couple of guys in a parking lot swinging lightsabers around very very proficiently, very cool, and then the tweet was like, why can't the lightsaber duels in the sequels be like this? Like, the sequel lightsaber duels look so crap compared to these guys on YouTube. And it's like, well, because the guys on YouTube aren't telling a story with their lightsaber fight. They aren't, there are no rules to what they're doing. They are just spinning around toys at each other in the dark.
So
um
speaking of,
yeah.
why don't we kind of declare what it is we're basing the criteria to rank
Okay.
these things. So like
Yeah, good call.
context and choreography and all that stuff. Like,
Yeah, so I think choreography is definitely a part of it, right?
mm,
I mean, there are better choreographed fights and there are worse choreographed fights. But I think emotional content is a
mm,
big part of a lightsaber duel. I think it in fact is the biggest part. Um I do think I think characterization is a really big part of it. So let me explain what that means. Um Different characters fight with different styles, and those different styles reveal things about their character,
mm,
both in a broad sense but also specifically where they're at in that point in the story, right? So Rey fighting in The Force Awakens is very different from Rey fighting in The Last Jedi, which is very different from her fighting in The Rise of Skywalker, right? Her style changes in each of those movies. Anakin is another really great example of this, where Anakin's style in Attack of the Clones is very different from his style in Revenge of the Sith. And where he's at in both of those stories says a lot about, the evolution of his character and and
mm,
and where he's at in his journey. So that characterization to me is a very big part of it. And that's something that really only came about in the prequels. It's not really in the original trilogy because we actually only see three people technically, I guess, because we see Obi-Wan for a little bit wielding lightsabers. So we really don't get that much of it, but we do get a little bit. We'll get into that. But um and then yeah, I don't know, I think like story impact is another big part of it. It's like some of the fights are gonna be lower ranked because they just like really don't do anything. They really don't serve a purpose,
mm.
right? They just kind of happen. And I think when we get into episode 3, I might have something to say about one of the duels in regards to that. But yeah, does that make sense? Is that
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that jives with you?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, like, listen, Duel of the Fates, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Maul on Naboo, I think is going to end up ranked in the top 5 at least,
Mm,
right? If not in like the top 3. It is kind of the benchmark. That benchmark
yeah,
doesn't mean that
yeah.
it's the best. Benchmark means it's sort of the one by which I think all others are compared,
Mm,
right? It's sort of like you're either above or below that to begin with.
sure. Yeah.
So I sort of, it's great that it's episode 1, and that's one of the reasons why we're starting there as opposed to starting in release order, right? Because I think it allows us to establish sort of like Duel of the Fates is really what we're going to compare everything else to, um because that was the first time that I think that we all looked at it and went like, holy crap,
Yeah,
lightsabers are
wow.
the
Lightsabers can be
best.
this intense and
Yeah.
insane, and
Yeah.
after, I mean, you mentioned before there isn't that much lightsaber dueling in the original trilogy, and
Yeah.
when they came back for the prequels, George very intelligently hired Nick Gillard
Hmm.
to make sure that the lightsaber sequences were like, yeah, here are the Jedi in their absolute prime, so that just it's the adrenaline is going to be way higher than we've ever seen it before.
Totally.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku. So again, like, this is exactly it. Are we gonna put this above or below Duel of the Fates? I think it's below, right?
It's clearly below.
Yeah. uh,
I would say it is better than Qui Gon versus Maul,
yeah.
though. Yeah.
I agree. I think these are pretty easy to begin with. It's gonna get more complicated as we get further, right?
Mhm.
Yoda versus Dooku on Geonosis, prime example. Yoda versus Dooku on Geonosis. Man, it's tough. This is a good fight. There's a lot going on in this one emotionally.
Mhm.
Master and apprentice, I facing off. We got some force battle stuff, at like force lightning battle stuff going on in this one as well. But I don't know. I think it goes under the Duel of Fates just because it's so brief. It's so short.
Yeah.
But it's above Anakin and
Yeah.
Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, I would almost say for me personally, Yoda and Dooku versus Duel of Fates, they're almost interchangeable because both of them did the same thing for me. They really
Mhm.
like blew Baby Joe Hogan's mind and like what a lightsaber fight
Yeah.
is. Um, and especially like I've always really loved Yoda. Has always been one of my favorites, and just the shock because they did a very good job of for the most part because like the toy did come with a lightsaber. But when I was watching that movie, I forgot that
Yeah.
lightsaber came with that action figure, and when he just pulled it out and they just started fighting, I
Yeah.
was maybe in my top 10 favorite childhood memories of my life was that moment watching that unfold on screen and just the theater I heard nothing. I didn't hear any sound effects during that fight the
Oh
first time
yeah.
because the entire theater was just in anarchy, screaming and cheering and awesome. I love that fight. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of revisionist history around this one of people being like, "Oh, Yoda flipping around with a lightsaber." And
I
it's
love
like
it. I don't care. I love it.
you're lying. You are lying
I love
if
it.
you are saying that like when you were in that theater on opening night, you weren't like the edge of your seat hooting and hollering at this reveal. And then I mean it's not even just the reveal, but then like the subsequent action of like how does Yoda fight?
Mhm.
And just the
Yeah. Oh
flipping
yeah.
and the flopping and the
Oh
frog
man.
moves. I mean, like, come on,
Awesome.
man.
It was
Yeah,
awesome.
it's up there. It's up there. And I think it'll stay pretty high. Um Anakin and Obi-Wan Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku on the Invisible Hand. Now, this one actually ranks really low for me.
Really?
I do not like I the okay. Um is it better than the fight on Geonosis?
I
It's
think it
tough.
is.
Obi-Wan goes
I
down
think
like a
it is.
punk at the beginning of this and it makes no sense. It makes no sense. There's so much of this fight that's cut for time. If you've seen like the
Oh
stuff
yeah, the full
that
choreography. Yeah.
was like the full choreography, it's an incredible duel and so
Go
much of it got cut.
go to Nick Gillard's YouTube channel because he
Yeah.
has a whole bunch of those on there of all like the screen tests of prequel lightsaber duels that just never made it to the screen and like there's so many good ones. There's a lot of good ones there.
But here's the thing: the Anakin and Dooku on Geonosis has the moment when he cuts the lights,
Mm,
and they've got the lightsabers up,
right,
and
yeah.
they do that like just with like the like the splashes of light. I think that's better than anything that's in the duel on the Invisible Hand.
Mm. Oh, we are missing Mace versus Palpatine.
Oh my goodness, we are. You're right. We are missing that one. Oh, I'm gonna have to add that one in. Yeah.
Only because I was thinking of Nick Gillard's YouTube channel and like that
Yeah.
fight is
Oh my
insane
god,
on
I can't
there.
believe I missed that. Yeah. Yeah.
Episode 3 has a
On
lot of
Coruscant.
fights. Wow.
Yeah. I was definitely doing it like just from memory. I didn't like look it
Mm.
up. I just sort of like played the movies in my
Missing one
mind.
out of 9 films is pretty good. There's a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot of duels.
Yeah, so that one goes there. Okay. So what do you think? What do you think? I want to put the episode 3 Anakin and Obi versus Dooku under the episode 2 fight.
I f- I guess look, I'm not going to be upset if we do that. I don't know if I completely agree. I do think they're pretty interchangeable because
Mhm.
look, Obi-Wan does kind of go down like a punk in the Geonosis fight too.
He does, yeah.
Um I like that Anakin is a lot stronger in this fight and holds his own against Dooku and it's not Dooku toying with him. Um but that's just kind of a personal preference. Honestly, this isn't a hill I'm gonna die on. Honestly, I'm fine with it where it is.
Okay. All right. All right. I'm gonna pop it under the episode
Okay.
2 one. Um just because the artistry in that episode 2 duel, I think deserves some credit.
Mm.
That's a choreography thing. Okay, Obi-Wan versus Grievous on Utapau. I I think this might be the worst duel in
Yeah.
the entire saga.
Oh, really? Well, it's
Yeah.
definitely not my favorite.
So the lightsabers are a total non-issue
Yeah.
in that, like
Yeah.
so here let me give some context, some justification. I Duke Grievous is introduced in the Gendy micro series,
So awesome.
and he is introduced in stellar fashion,
Mhm.
um in an incredible fight against Kiadi Mundi, Ayla Sakura. Is Shakti there?
Yes, Shakti is
Yeah,
there.
Shakti and Shaggy
Shaggy
is also there.
Kruk is there, and then
And yeah, and Kruk. Yeah.
that one other conehead guy who I'm not even sure he has a name. He's got like
Yeah.
the bandages on the cone head.
Yeah. So um it's an incredible fight.
Hmm.
And then we get Grievous in episode 3, and he is incredibly disappointing
Yeah.
by contrast. Even in the second season of the micro series, Grievous doesn't do anything as impressive as what he did in his introduction.
Hmm.
So the promise of Obi-Wan versus Grievous in the trailer, and Grievous with the 4 lightsabers and all of that, I think it was just such a letdown for me.
Yeah,
Um,
especially because all of the media that Grievous was in before Episode
mhm.
3 was just like, oh, he's just this unstoppable Jedi killing machine. He's gonna be terrifying, and
Yeah,
then just wasn't.
yeah, yeah. And then it's like he spins the thing. Obi-Wan sticks the lightsaber in, like just in the middle, and just stops him, and then immediately cuts off 2 lightsabers, and then very quickly deals with the other 2, and the lightsaber portion of that duel is done. Right?
Well, I do kind of like. I mean, it definitely was in my opinion, a good subversion of expectations that
Sure.
Obi-Wan kills Grievous by shooting him. Just like I never saw that coming, and
Oh
it like
yeah.
made me laugh. Like I appreciated it, but
Listen, everything that happens after that moment, like when Grievous jumps on the wheel bike and flees, and then
yeah.
Obi-Wan jumps on Boga, and then like Steven Spielberg takes over. For those who don't know, that sequence is directed by Steven Spielberg. Um, yeah, like the chase through Utapau, which is actually another one of those ones that is like there's an extended version of it that is it's animatic, like it's not completed, but there's an extended version that like goes through traffic, and like and Obi-Wan pulls out his lightsaber and does some like deflecting at a certain point, and like it's a much bigger chase sequence that's cut for time because episode 3 is a beast of a movie.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, like everything that happens subsequently I love, and then the fight on the platform at the very end I also love. But in terms of like, if I'm gonna rank it as in against lightsaber duels, it's not.
Yeah, it's the poo poos.
Yeah, I put it last because right now at the bottom of the list we have Qui-Gon versus Maul on Tatooine, right?
Yeah.
Which I actually think is a very well choreographed fight, and is the first time we see lightsabers make contact in the prequels, right?
Hmm.
It's very brief, which is one of the reasons why I think I put it, so far it's been ranked underneath everything else. I don't think it's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think actually, like in terms of what that one does for the story,
Hmm.
for Phantom Menace, I think it absolutely serves its purpose narratively, of like, oh, Qui-Gon can't beat him. Right? Like it is foreshadowing the fact that Maul will kill Qui-Gon at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So I think like from a narrative perspective, I think it's actually doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of like the suspense in that story, and obviously as an introduction of Maul, I think it's fantastic. So yeah,
Yeah,
like
I,
I put this under that.
I really like how that first duel is. I mean, I guess we didn't really talk about it because we just kind of threw it on
Yeah.
there because there really wasn't that much to say about it. But yeah, I really liked in the context of the story for Qui-Gon and our heroes, like this dude just shows up and starts swinging. There's no
Yeah.
talking, no not like who the hell is this guy? Holy crap, he's really strong. He has a lightsaber. I can't beat him. We have to run.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, it's a very, jarring thing for them to go through. And it moves the plot, right? Because immediately they go to the Jedi Council and they're just like, hey, yeah, I just was attacked by this dude. Pretty sure he's a Sith. I think we really need to look into this.
Well, this is the beginning of this is the first failure of the Jedi Council
Yeah, yeah.
in the prequels, right? In that Qui-Gon shows up and he's like, "I was attacked by a Sith Lord," and the Council goes, "That's not possible." And he's like, no, the dude, he like, I don't know if I'm painting this picture clearly enough. His face was black and he had like these red tattoos and like pointy teeth and horns, and his eyes were glowing yellow. And also, did I mention that his lightsaber was a crimson blade, which I've never seen and only heard stories about because the Sith have been gone for a millennia. But like, this dude was definitely a Sith. Also, completely dressed in black, and I almost died. I almost died. He almost killed me. I had to jump onto a ship that was already in the air in order to get away from this dude. It was not a fun time. I think like the council is just like they dismiss it so quickly, just out of hand, right? So yeah, it is like, it's so important for the story because it's like, this is the first indicator of there's something seriously wrong with the Jedi Order at this point in the story. And then later on, when Yoda is like, how could we have been so blind to these, like, they were Sith right under our noses? And it's like, well, because you didn't listen to Qui-Gon when he told you that this was happening.
Mm.
But anyways, that's a whole other topic, a whole other debate for a different episode. But
I gotta say, that just gave me a lot more appreciation for that fight because I liked it. I never disliked it,
yeah,
but like now I appreciate it more now that I'm just kind of thinking about it. And
do we need to move it up in the ranking? That's the
damn,
question.
man, I don't know because
Do we just convince ourselves that it's better than
it's
either of the Dooku
it's
fights?
so quick though, right?
It's
Like
so
it's
short.
like less than a minute long that fight.
Yeah.
Um,
I think a lot of other stuff is going to end up underneath it. It looks like it's
yeah,
ranked low right now, but that's just
yeah,
because we're only
yeah.
into episode 3, right?
True. Okay, yeah. Let's keep
Let's
going.
keep going. Let's table it. Let's come back to
Okay,
the Qui-Gon versus Maul and Tatooine
okay.
fight. Mace versus Palpatine on Coruscant. This is a good fight. I like, listen, the stuff at the beginning of it, I know that everybody is like makes fun of it, the spinny attack and how quick the other Jedi masters go down. Once that's out of the way, the rest of this duel is really good. Cuz this
I
includes Anakin coming in and Mace going out the window, right? Like, so if we're talking about like context and story and like the emotional content of it, I think this is actually like, to me, this at not the first time that I saw the movie, but on rewatch, this is probably, to me, the most important part of Revenge of the Sith
Hmm.
is this duel, and when Anakin comes in and sort of like all of the context around it and all
Yeah,
of
it's
the
the
like
tipping
the
point. Yeah.
emotionality around it. Because I guess Anakin does technically factor into this. His lightsaber does come in contact with Mace's, right? So, like, yeah, I don't know. I think this one's actually pretty high. Like, I think this one's over both of the Dooku fights.
I don't know, man. So for me, the right off the bat, it loses some points for the editing. Because like there are those shots where some of them Ian McDermott is holding Anakin's lightsaber, and I know that's because they cut it down, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
whatever it happens, they can't fix it. Whatever. A lot of it is also like the close-up shots of Ian McDermott fighting aren't scary to me.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
they immediately take me out of it because, look, he wanted to do some of his own fighting, which I applaud. It's cool, but like
yeah.
the contrast of intensity between the shots is very apparent. So for me, like yes, I agree. The context of the fight itself, the choreography for the most part is really good. If they kept the original choreography, like those screen tests, this would
Yeah,
probably be my favorite fight, period.
yeah,
But it's not. It really, like, I don't know, like I lose a lot of steam watching this fight. Um and I don't think it's anybody's fault. I think they edited it for brevity. I know they didn't film the entire thing the way it was supposed to go. I think the day of they showed up and literally re-choreographed it, and Ian McDermott had to literally learn it within like an hour or something like that. So props to Ian McDermott, because I'm sure that was
yeah.
not an easy thing for him, because I don't think he has any sword fighting experience. Um, but yeah, man, it's not for me. It's like it just doesn't have. And I am also definitely in the camp that, man, you were upset about Obi-Wan going down like a punk. I was so excited to see those guys fight, and it was just like, nah. It's and I get it. It's he's so much stronger than three Jedi Council members and kills them immediately. That's how dangerous he is. You need to really take this seriously, which
Yeah.
with how dangerous. I get it, but for me as a fight, it was not satisfying to watch. For me, it's below Anakin versus Dooku.
Okay.
And now I'm not even sure about Qui-Gon versus Maul, because I'm not even sure if that should stay where it is. Um, I don't know. I say we compromise. We put it between the two Anakin versus Dooku's.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that works for
Okay,
me. That works
cool.
for me. Okay. I cool. Okay, Yoda versus Palpatine.
I like this one a lot more. I don't like it as much as uh, Yoda
Yoda
versus
versus
Dooku.
Dooku. Yeah.
Super exciting to watch. Like
Mhm.
throwing Senate pods at Yoda. It was like really, really fun.
Yeah.
But like for me, it was one of those things where it's like, well, this can only end one way. So
Yeah.
for me, the stakes were just super low. Like we knew Yoda was gonna lose. He's gonna go into hiding. Um, so I don't know. I'm almost indifferent about where this one is placed, if I'm being honest.
I am gonna say I'm actually gonna. I said let's put it underneath the Dooku fights.
Okay, sure.
It's fun. It's good, but yeah,
Yeah,
ultimately it's kind of pointless.
not much to it.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's intercut with Battle of the Heroes, which is the next one. And Battle of the Heroes, I think, is the first one that we get to put above Duel of the Fates. How do you feel about that?
I can get behind that. For me, Duel of Fates and Battle Heroes are pretty interchangeable. I
Yeah.
would, for if I were to argue, I would probably say Duel of the Fates clenches it for me.
Mm.
But only because I feel like it goes on a little too long, and like I check out a little bit during the like swinging on the ropes over the lava river and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's
I
some of
feel
it's
you.
just like a little whatever for me. But it's look, I'm fine with it being number one for now.
The Battle of the Heroes is a funny one because it's got everything in the kitchen sink in it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's funny because like there's so much that's actually cut from it, from the duel,
Right.
but what we do get is still everything in the kitchen sink. I love the one scene. It's funny because I sent you the gif, right, of the
Yeah.
spinny lightsabers.
Yeah.
I actually really love that moment because I love the lightsaber duels that are happening in the Jedi's head before the lightsabers even move, right? And that scene to me, like as it's presented, what I see there is what George is intending, I think, what sort of based on the things that he said about it, which is that like these guys are so evenly matched. They're so evenly matched. And that moment where the lightsabers are just spinning around is both of them looking for an opening and neither one giving a single inch,
Mm.
right? So like they're every one of those shifts, it looks to us like they're just swinging their lightsabers around, not making contact. But every single one of those moves is a shift in position with them trying to like figure out how do I get past his defense, right? Like what, but they're in those split seconds playing out the rest of the fight and both of them are looking at each other. They know each other so well. There's so much subtext in that one shot to me that I'm like, that's what I'm here for, right? Everybody who's listened to me podcast about Star Wars since season 3 of Rebels knows that my favorite lightsaber duel is Obi-Wan and Maul on Tatooine, right? In
Mm.
Star Wars Rebels, which is a fight that takes all of 30 seconds and is 3 moves, right? But that is actually like it's actually like 10 years. Like it's every single fight that either of them have. Well, I guess no, at that point it's like 30 years, right? It's every time they crossed blades, it's ever with each other, with anybody else, right? Like it is everything. And then like with the context of the Clone Wars, it's like it's Satine, it's everything, right?
Mm.
Everything that Obi-Wan took from Maul, everything that Maul took from Obi-Wan, all of that happens without anybody saying a word and without anybody even making a move. And as Obi-Wan moves through those stances, it tells that whole story, right? um so that's my number one lightsaber duel in the entire Star Wars saga, out of every single time a lightsaber has ever been ignited. But so like that's where I'm at with lightsabers, is that, like, that to me is so much more interesting than um than flippy dips and whatever. But then, like, with this fight, so it's got that going for it emotionally, um and sort of like as a subtext, and the characterization of it, of these two Jedi, the two most powerful Jedi in the order in their prime, fighting for their lives, right? Like fighting for everything, right? Like Obi-Wan is fighting for the fate of the galaxy, and Anakin is fighting for the fate of his galaxy, right? Like the stakes couldn't be higher. Even though we know how this is going to play out, like the stakes could not be higher. And every time, like Revenge of the Sith, the genius of that movie for me, upon, you know, with hindsight and sort of like over the course of years, is that every time I watch it, I want it to go differently.
Yeah.
I want it to play out differently. And there's another duel that we'll talk about that has the same dynamic, where every single time I watch it, I'm just like, please, please, please don't do this. Don't make this choice again. That's where that Mace Windu versus Palpatine fight also has so much weight for me, is because that moment to me is the emotional climax of Revenge of the Sith, right? Is Anakin making that choice, because once he does that, there's no turning back for him. But at least that's what he sees. So like this is another one of those ones where it's like Obi-Wan's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to do this, but you're forcing me into this. And so that's all throughout this fight. And then on top of it, you've got the Errol Flynn. You say like the swing on things is like too much for you. I love it so much.
It's fun. It just stops the pacing a little dead for me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's intercut with the Yoda and Palpatine fight, and I think that also makes it tough, because it's like, like it like we're kind of switching back and forth, and I think that makes Battle of the Heroes feel longer than it actually is, because we have the Yoda and Palpatine fight in between. Um, but yeah, okay, okay.
But it's so weird because Duel of the Fates switches
Mhm.
between that to the battle on Naboo with the Gungans versus the battle droids, plus
Yeah,
Amidala and Panaka, uh, infiltrating the palace, plus Anakin fighting the droid control ship, and it's like all that stuff. But I don't have that problem with Duel of the Fates. Like Duel of the Fates doesn't feel too long to me.
for sure. That's because that's variety, right? And that's the genius of
Yeah, I guess that's
of
true.
that,
Yeah.
as well as the end of Return of the Jedi, right? And um it's what they tried to do in Tross, but didn't nail. They didn't
Mm.
execute it well enough, right? But it's what they were going for in all of those, is that keeping that pacing um solid by having that variety playing
Mm.
out. But Okay. Um. Oh, I don't know, man. You kind of got okay. We'll leave. We're gonna leave Duel of the Fates at the top.
Oh, okay. I
You
mean, look,
you
I'm okay with them interchanging. I think those
yeah yeah.
two, like,
No, I mean I think
I'm
that they're
cool
on
with.
equal footing, and I
Okay,
think it's day of the week sort of
okay,
thing.
okay,
But I will give it to Duel of the Fates because I think
okay.
you're right.
All right.
Just in the larger context of that movie, I think Duel of the Fates works better.
Sure.
Obi-Wan versus Vader on the Death Star.
I hate this duel. Like, I know, I get it. I know. I don't
Yeah,
care about this duel. I always gloss over it. I have a hard time paying attention to it. I think in context of the saga, the
yeah.
duel has improved, but like, if we only had the original trilogy, this would be my absolute bottom
It
for
would
me.
be the bottom. Yeah, it's absolutely the bottom of the original trilogy duels.
Y-
Yeah, in terms of choreography, it scores a 0,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
there is no choreography here. It's a couple of lightsabers tapping against each other
yeah,
and two guys circling. Um, that said, all of the like fan edits of like the oh, here's like the two of them fight. I hate that stuff too. I hate that stuff so
mm,
much. So it's like, leave it as it is. It is what it is. It is to me. It is two old samurai fighting. But it is also it is not fully a fight because Obi-Wan does not fight Vader. I think like to me, if anything, like that kind of gives it some points for me in terms of story, because it's like Obi-Wan is not there to fight Vader. Obi-Wan is delaying Vader so that the
yeah.
others can escape.
By time, yeah.
He knows that he's not walking away from that, right? Like he knows for a fact the second that they step foot on the Death Star that he is not leaving. Um and I think that that's a resolve that he's had since the last time that he saw Vader in the Obi-Wan series, and that's the additional context that the Obi-Wan Kenobi series gives us. I think that when he walks away from Vader at the end of that, he does it knowing, if I see you again, it will be for the last time, and not
Mm,
because I will defeat you,
mm,
but because like because I refuse to fight you again, right? Like it's that sort of thing. And then so then we get to A New Hope and we watch that now with that context. That's what I see when
yeah.
I watch that, is Obi-Wan going like, I'm not fighting you. All he does is stop Vader, delay Vader for a little while, and then he goes, do it. And it's exactly the what happens on Crate with Luke and Kylo, right? Of like, strike me down. This action will actually be the thing that undoes you,
Mm,
right? Now, Obi-Wan doesn't fully understand what that means at the time, but he does know that. He knows that for a fact, that like this moment, it's funny because I've got my desktops are screenshots from Galaxy of Adventure, and the one that's up on my one monitor that doesn't, because I've got browsers open on the other two monitors, and on my third monitor right now is this duel, and at the center of it in that Galaxy Adventure, I love Galaxy Adventure so much,
yeah,
it's
they're
so
great,
good.
man. They're awesome.
At the center of that duel, we've got the two crossed blades with Obi-Wan and Vader, and at the center of it in the framing is Luke watching. And that's what that fight's about. That
Yeah.
fight is about what is going to propel Luke on his larger hero's journey, not just the one for A New Hope, but the one that spans the entire trilogy. Um, this is the fuel. This is the thing that pushes Luke over the threshold to becoming a Jedi Knight, to becoming Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. And so like it holds weight for that, which obviously puts it above Obi-Wan versus Grievous. But yeah, in terms of the rest of it, I agree. It's very low.
Quick recap for all of you who cannot
Yeah.
see the board right now. Obi-Wan is involved in the top two and the bottom two as of right now. So
Fantastic. Okay, cool. Luke versus Vader on Bespin.
I love this fight. Okay. Also, full disclosure, this
Yeah.
is my first exposure to Star Wars ever, was watching the second half of The Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
I didn't see A New Hope. I didn't see the
Yeah.
first half of Empire Strikes Back. I came in at Dagobah. It was the first time I ever saw anything Star Wars as a child. So
Yeah.
Luke versus Vader is my first lightsaber fight, and I love it because to this day I will never forget the feeling of Luke showed up to school, didn't study for the test. He's gonna get his butt kicked. Is he gonna survive this? I
Yeah.
didn't know anything. I had never
Yeah.
seen Return of the Jedi. I like had no idea what to expect, and it was so obvious that this big scary robot guy was just toying with him, and I am on the edge of my seat the entire time I'm watching this fight.
Yeah.
So
I've
for
just I've just placed it in the number one spot, and it is entirely
okay,
possible that it stays there for the rest of
all right,
this.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm okay
Yeah.
with it.
Because I do think if if we take Duel of the Fates as sort of like a benchmark of like choreography, story, pacing, editing, all of that stuff, and we go, okay, so like this is sort of like the meter by which we compare all of that. The thing about the Luke versus Vader fight is that there's not a lot of intercutting. We do cut
Mm,
a little bit away to Leia and Lando and Boba, like the escape, right? But we are almost entirely on this fight. This is emotional as hell. Even before we get to the reveal, right? It is brutal. It is beautifully, incredibly shot.
mhm.
It is iconic in a way that I think very few things in film have ever managed to be. The underlighting, the orange underlighting of the carbon freezing chamber, um, and Luke and Vader, and just the back and forth, the sort of the tete-a-tete of it.
Mm.
It just impressive, most impressive. You'll find I'm full of surprises. All of that is just it's the best. Like, this is what Star Wars is about, man. Like, this is what it's about. So yeah, I mean, and then on top of that, then you end up on the weather vane. You end up on like over the chasm. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. Like, I'll never join you. And then yeah, it's like this is what it is, right? Like, this is what it is. Empire Strikes Back is Empire Strikes Back. This fight, above all other things in this movie, is like Empire is perfect, right? Like, Empire
No
is
argument from
perfect.
me.
The Battle of Hoth is incredible. The Wampa is incredible. Tauntauns are amazing. Bespin is unbelievable. The Slogoth, right? Like just the giant
Yoda.
slug. Yoda, Dagobah, the X-wing, like Yoda's theme. This is some of the Imperial March, for God's sake, the Imperial March. Without Empire, we're not sitting here,
Yeah.
right? Like, if it's
Yeah.
just A New Hope, I don't know. I don't know, because like The Last Starfighter is one of my favorite movies of all time, but that's all there is. And there is no there isn't 15 years of podcasting about The Last Starfighter as much as I love that movie. It's one movie, it's by itself, it stands alone, but Empire is the thing that makes Star Wars go from Star Wars to Star Wars, right? Like literally, cuz it transforms the movie Star Wars into Episode 4 A New Hope, by virtue of the fact that now Star Wars Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back exists,
Mm.
right? Because previous to that, it was just Star Wars. It was a movie and some comic books and some toys. But then this movie and this fight, no, I Am Your Father, transforms Star Wars from a thing that happened in the summer of 1977 that changed movies to a thing that happened in the 70s and the 80s that changed the world, right?
Yeah,
Like, and
for
changed
sure.
the way that I think we engage with popular culture. So yeah, like, number one, number one.
Yeah,
And i
cool.
and i really just I don't see how anything is actually going to beat that, um because everything that we talk about, because on top of that, the choreography in this duel is actually very good,
Yeah, it's
right?
awesome.
It's very limited by the technology, but it is also still a very, very good fight when we put into context that, like, Luke has never fought anybody with a lightsaber previous to this. Vader
Mm.
is toying with him. So their rematch in Return of the Jedi, which we'll just get into right now, like their rematch in Return of the Jedi is obviously much more bombastic. There's a lot more going on
Right.
to it. The first time we see a lightsaber thrown through the air, right? I, but and obviously, like uh, Leia and you want this, don't you? Like strike me down, and all of that stuff is all also incredibly like just fraught, right? Like it's
Mm.
just like the tension in the battle in Return of the Jedi is at an 11 from the get-go, like right from the moment that Palpatine puts his hand on Luke's lightsaber and he's like, yes, you want this, take it, go do it. And then he does, and Vader blocks the lightsaber. And it's like from there, it's like every time we cut back to that fight, it is just, yeah, the tension of that. Like Return of the Jedi is a masterclass, right? Like Return of the Jedi, the Battle of Endor is the best edited sequence in all of Star Wars, possibly in all of movies. Like
Damn.
I think certainly in terms of action, in terms of like action sequences, I think that any editor worth their salt that works in action, I don't care if you're working on a Fast and the Furious, if you're working on, I don't know, a Zack Snyder movie like Rebel Moon, which, oh boy, I don't know if you've watched it yet. Maybe that's a Thunderquack
I'm about
podcast topic.
40 minutes into it, and then I
Yeah,
went to bed.
I think you're good.
Oh no, okay.
We'll talk about it on the Thunderquack podcast. Tune into the Thunderquack podcast, which we're recording right after this. We'll talk about Rebel Moon. But yeah, like I think that everybody who's ever sat down at an editing deck, that I just dated myself by calling it an editing deck. But I yeah, like anybody who's ever sat down to do that job in any serious way, um, for an action sequence would tell you this is it. This is what you're going for, is Return of the Jedi, right? Because yeah, it's just so perfect. I mean, even I when we get there and it to the Last Jedi, another sequence that is like cutting between three planes of action, that you know crescendos in one of my top three moments in Star Wars. It is doing this. It is doing what this sequence did. It's emulating this, right? Is it one upping it? I don't know. We'll talk about it, but it's definitely emulating this. Because this is the standard. This is what people go to and go like, that's how you make a third act action sequence, like with the brilliant climax, all of it. Um, but the question remains:
Where are
is
we
it
putting
so?
it?
Is it above Duel of the Fates?
Um, if you had asked me this question a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
I would have said yes, because the stakes in Death Star 2 fight are so high.
Yeah,
It's not just okay, well, the Emperor's going to win and the rebels uh are going to lose this fight. Now the Emperor and Vader have their sights on Leia to turn her to the dark side, and it's just like, "Oh man, this is way bigger than, you
yeah,
know, anything else." But I really love that quote of Filoni that's been going around for the last like year or two of Duel of the Fates is really the fate of the galaxy, because if Qui-Gon survives, he trains Anakin, no Darth Vader.
mm-hmm.
Anakin never becomes Darth Vader because Qui-Gon understands his needs, and Obi-Wan doesn't, right? Obi-Wan does it in a sense of obligation and loyalty to Qui-Gon, and while he does his best, obviously Darth Vader still becomes a thing. And the Duel of the Fates, like the stakes are a lot higher than anybody kind of realized, in the moment, right? It's just like,
Yeah,
oh man, I hope nothing bad happens to Qui-Gon, because I mean we knew Obi-Wan would be fine. Um, but it just like the stakes just weren't as high. Now I feel like the stakes were even higher in this one than the Return of the Jedi fight, but that's not the only deciding factor. Um, I don't know, man. Like this is a really tough one.
It's tough, right? It's
I
really tough.
I think I would give it to Death Star 2 just because I kind of like that Luke comes undone, right? Like
Hmm.
he lets a little bit of that dark side in where, you can argue that oh, maybe Obi-Wan did too, but not really. It like Obi-Wan, you didn't see a lot of hatred in Obi-Wan. He was angry,
Yeah,
but
he
like
didn't
he
go
was
all the way.
focused. Yeah, he was focused.
Luke
Luke was
Luke
not
has to Luke has to pull himself back. Obi-Wan never has to pull
right.
himself back. Obi-Wan
Right.
cuts Darth Maul in half and the fight is done and he turns
Right.
to Qui-Gon and he's back to himself, right? But Luke has to literally stop himself. He cuts off Vader's hand and then and that he sees the stump. He sees the robotic stump and it stops him in his tracks and he looks at his own hand and he goes, and that's the moment when he realizes I am already, this is what Yoda talked about, right? Once you start down the dark
Right.
path,
Yeah.
forever will it dominate your destiny, which is, Yoda doesn't mean that it, like, once it's done, it's done. That's not what he means. He
Mm,
means that once you make a choice like that, everything in your life from that point on is going to be influenced by the decision you made
yeah.
right there, right? And Luke already goes too far. He already kills Vader. Vader is dead, right? Like 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 there's very little coming back. He's already gasping for air. He's already gotten the crap beaten out of him. Like Luke has won. He has defeated Vader. There's no getting out of that situation, as we know, that doesn't involve, other than unless you account Star Wars Infinities. But there is no getting out of that situation that doesn't involve Vader's death in some way, whether by
Mm,
sacrifice or by, Luke's hand, right? And Luke looks at his own robotic hand and he goes, I am already infected with this.
mm,
It's all like, it's not, the dark side is not something to be avoided. And this is where Luke becomes Luke, right? This is where he becomes one of the greatest Jedi ever, is when he looks at that and he looks at his hand and he tosses his lightsaber down and he goes, this is a part of me, can't get rid of it. I've already made this choice, right? It already is dominating my destiny. I'm already on this path, but here and now I have a choice whether or not to continue down that path or to stop, right? And if that means my death, then that means my death, right? And that's more important than, survival in this moment, right? Um, and to me, like that, yeah, that is, like, that's so much, because that
yeah.
is what Star Wars ultimately is about.
Mm,
And it's in that moment, it's in that action, it's in accepting and integrating his dark side, right? Eating his own shadow and saying to Palpatine, you failed. I'm a Jedi like my father before me. That's when Anakin goes, it's not done, right? Luke shows him that even though you've crossed the line, you can always, always, always step back,
mm,
right? Even as far gone as Vader is, he can still step back, and he does, and he comes back, and Anakin is reborn, and and Palpatine is defeated ish, right? But like that, yeah, that's what Star Wars is all about. Like that was the whole point of it. And so to me, it's, yeah, that's just a little bit more. That's the edge. That's the thing that edges it out
yeah.
over
Yeah.
Duel of the Fates, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
Cool. Okay. Here we go. Finn versus FN 2199. We're into the sequels.
By the way,
Yeah.
looking at these two lists, we've done episodes 1 through 6, and the list of duels of just 7 through 9 are almost as much.
It's almost as much as the entirety of the first 6 films.
We're like halfway there.
Yeah. So I like, this is wonderful because this I think brings up one of the points that I wanted to bring up, which is that, like, more lightsaber fights flashier lightsaber fight. It's not necessarily better, because look at what our top two are. Our top two are
Right.
Empire and Jedi,
Yeah.
right? And that's because they're not the flashiest fights. They are not choreographed as well as some of these other ones, and yet, like, they're up there because of what they mean, right? So spinny moves and flashy choreography, that is not what defines a good lightsaber duel, right? That is not it. There's more.
Grievous.
There's more there. Finn versus FN 2199, his official name, but as we know him, Traitor. TR8R. Um, I I actually really love this moment in The Force Awakens. I think it's a really, really character defining moment for Finn. I mean, this is the moment we just talked about Luke's choice of, like, am I gonna go down the dark path, or am I gonna die a hero, right? This is Finn's moment when Maz, he's, I need a weapon, you already have one, right? Like, go, like, fight, become a hero, right? I this is actually Finn's first step. This is him crossing the threshold, right? Even though the adventure is, like, well on its way, and there were other points where you could say that he crossed the threshold, like rescuing Poe to begin with. All of that was out of self-interest.
I
Everything
was
up
just
until
gonna
this point
say,
is
I don't. Yeah, I
self-interest.
don't really count that because he was just
No,
looking out for number one at that
Poe
point.
calls him out on it, right? That's
Yeah.
that's why it's in there. Lawrence
Yeah.
Kasdan knows what he's doing. He wrote that in there for a reason. You need a pilot. I need a pilot, right? Like, we're gonna do this. Poe is the hero in those scenes. Finn is a passenger. That's why Poe is in the front seat and Finn is in the
Mm.
back seat, right? um yeah, it's like Poe is in charge, Poe is in control, and then that transforms from uh Poe to Ray is in charge, Ray is the hero, Ray is the one that's gonna pull him over the threshold. Finn keeps trying, he keeps trying to take her hand, but then she takes his hand and goes, come on, let's go, I'm the hero. This is the moment where Finn steps up and goes, I'm a hero too, right? Like, I can be a hero too. I'm gonna stand up against the First Order. I am gonna fight against them. He's done running, right? So to me, like, all of that builds into this moment and defines this moment for the character. This is also, like, the beginning of his Jedi path, right? Which is shaky, and there's a lot to discuss there. That's maybe for a different episode, but but it is his first step. This is his first step. So I with all of that, where do we put it? Where do we
I
put
don't
it?
know, man. As a duel, that context matters.
Yeah,
That context matters. I think that alone,
it keeps it out of the bottom, right? Like, that's
yeah,
the thing, is it
that
keeps it out of
alone
the bottom.
drops it somewhere in the middle for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it above Yoda versus Palpatine on Coruscant?
Yoda versus Palpatine on Coruscant. Yeah, for me, I would even say it's above Mace versus Palpatine because I
Yeah.
was really excited watching this fight.
Yeah.
Geonosis. Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku on Geonosis. For me, I would probably say not as good as Obi-Wan Anakin versus Dooku.
Yeah.
Better than Mace and Palpatine.
I agree. I
If I
agree.
were to
Yeah.
throw that out there.
Okay.
For me, Finn versus Kylo
Yeah.
is probably my favorite moment out of the sequel trilogy. And it's the moment that it cemented Finn as my favorite character of the sequel trilogy. Because
Interesting. See,
similar.
you and I have not talked about the sequel trilogy a lot, which
Mhm.
I think is really interesting, because I know, like, it's not your favorite, right? Like, you're
It's
not
really not.
thrilled with them.
It's really not at all.
So it's really interesting because I love the sequel trilogy so much. So we really haven't talked about it. I didn't know that Finn was your favorite character from the sequels.
Yeah, Finn's my favorite.
This is really interesting. I love this. See, I'm learning so much about how you feel about these movies now.
Well, I love his character arc in this movie. I love that
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
just
Me
totally
too.
selfish. Like you said, he crosses that threshold. But this is, to me, this is the moment I know he sacrifices his well-being to go rescue Rey, but
Yeah.
this is the moment where he's like, I'm going to lose this. Like, I know for a fact I'm going to get my
Yeah.
ass kicked by Kylo Ren. He's this like big scary Sith dude. He has a lightsaber. I'm probably going to lose this fight. I'm going to fight him anyway. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Rey's in trouble. I need to save Rey.
Yeah.
Obviously it goes horrible for him, and I was terrified for him the entire, because it really was the first time in a Star Wars film other than Luke versus Vader on Bespin for me, in the context of my experience with watching Star Wars movies, that I really was like, I don't know how this is going to go for him.
Yeah.
He's not trained. He's fighting this guy who is. What's going to happen to this guy? He's in real danger. Like, I was actually really worried for Finn, because who knows? Maybe they would kill him, because I kind of had an inkling that, like, okay, well, Rey has Rey had the vision. Rey did the Jedi mind trick. Rey's probably going to be the one that, is. I wanted both of them to be Jedi, but whatever. I had a feeling Rey was going to be fine. I wasn't so sure about Finn.
Mhm.
But like, it always takes me back to my one of my favorite quotes in Game of Thrones is something like, the only time you can be brave is when you're afraid. And
Yeah.
like, here's Finn, like, terrified, knows the odds are stacked against him, and he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna do it anyway. It's because it's my friend is in trouble, so I have to rescue my friend.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, this is a very high fight. Um, if I were to put it in a starting point, I would say the lowest I would want to see it is below Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar. Um,
Yeah.
for me, I would even do it higher than that. It would be below Duel of Fates, and between the two, Duel of Fates and Battle of the Heroes. But I'm
Wow.
okay with it if you don't feel the same way.
I think this is a good spot for it. I don't think that I can put
Okay.
it above Battle of the Heroes, because it is also very brief. It's also like 4 or 5 moves,
Mm.
but yes, like I love it. I mean,
Okay, cool.
yeah, all of the stuff that you said, I second. I think you're spot on.
And it's well choreographed.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
for a dude who, clearly he's been trained with weapons, so it makes sense that he has that, you know, we saw him fighting, what is it, FN 2199.
yeah,
We know he has combat skills. He just doesn't have the force. So
yeah.
he's still able to not quite hold his own, but it's still like, ooh, maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance he'll come out on top here.
Well, he scores a hit. He scores a hit.
Right,
Like
and Kylo
he
was already hurt, right? Because he was
yeah,
shot by the bowcaster.
yeah,
So there was a
yeah.
possibility that, and also, like, you mentioned Adam Driver's acting. Like, Adam Driver's awesome in this fight.
Oh my god. This whole yeah, I mean
The
like the whole third
acting
act,
of
the
Adam
whole third
Driver.
act of The Force Awakens, Adam Driver is just like
Yeah.
Adam Driver is in a different movie from everybody else in the third act of The Force Awakens, but in a good way, where it's like he is the hero of his own story, and
Yeah.
you see that in him of like he's like no, you don't understand. Han Solo is the bad guy. I defeated him. I beat him, right? And you're not getting away. You're a traitor, and you're trying to and you girl, like you're staying with me. You're like you belong to me now, right? Like he's like no, I won, and now I get my rewards as a hero. You guys are trying to take that away from me, right? Like he's trying so hard to hold on to um this idea in his head, and it's like up to the moment of what we're at right now, the lightsaber in the snow, and he's pulling it to him, and it goes to Rey, and this fight starts, and it's just like that's where, and he becomes unmoored, as
Good
Snoke
word.
would say.
That's a
Yeah,
good word.
he was bested by a girl who never held a lightsaber. So the way you feel about the Finn versus Kylo is probably the way that I feel about Rey versus Kylo on Starkiller. It's not it. I don't know if it's my favorite. I think it's like day of the week is gonna determine whether it's this one or the Supremacy, because I really love everything that happens on the Supremacy. But back and forth between these two characters, especially in hindsight, especially with like future context of the entire thing. And I was not a Raylo when I started my journey with The Force Awakens, but I am a Raylo now. And the way that I feel about this fight now is very different from the way that I felt when I first saw it. Because this is the beginning of their courtship, right? Like this is the start of that. Yeah, choreography. I love the setting. I love the dark snowy forest.
Mm.
I love the lighting and just the atmosphere of it, and the way that the pathetic fallacy of it that as Kylo comes apart, as he starts to crack, the earth cracks as well, and Rey can defeat him. This can all be done, right? But that would put her on a path that she shouldn't be on, and the Force intercedes, as it has been throughout this movie, right? The Force Awakens to me is that like this is the first time since Anakin, since the Vergence in the Force, that the Force has decided that it's that the imbalance is too great. Like it needs to, something needs to happen, right? And so the Force actually intercedes here and splits the Earth between them, so that she can't kill Kylo Ren, because that's not their destiny, right? Um, I love all of that. I love all of that so much. I think it's so well done. I think it's all right there in Lawrence Kasdan's screenplay. And all JJ has to do is finish the job. You know, like all he's got to do is shoot it and put it together. Which is what JJ is very good at. Like you give JJ a great script and he will make an incredible movie. You give him a bad script and he will make an incredibly bad movie. Um, it's a very interesting dynamic there. I feel like JJ and Michael Bay are very much in the same vein, and I think that a lot of people will probably get mad at me for that, because a lot of people will say a lot of negative things about Michael Bay. I think Michael Bay is an incredible director. I think Michael Bay is a visionary, and I think that people don't give him credit for the way that he changed action films in the late 90s and early 2000s. He is an incredible director, and I put J.J. Abrams in the same um, category as him. They are both ridiculously technically skilled. If you don't give them a good script, they will shoot a bad movie. They'll just shoot a bad movie, because what they see is what's in front of them. And so they'll follow the script, they will create that story. And if that story is flawed, then it's a bit like the we're going to cross into MCU territory. It's a bit like the super soldier serum, right? It makes good better, it makes bad worse, right? Like I think that a director like Michael Bay, or a director like JJ Abrams, like they will amplify whatever you give them. You give them a good script written by Lawrence Kasdan, they're going to make a good movie. I mean, like third act aside, The Island is an awesome movie. I love it so much. Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson. I love that movie. It's such a good movie, such a great screenplay. And then it gets into third act nonsense with flying, you know, cars and hover bikes and whatever. um I still love all of that stuff. It's all great, but it's like a very different movie from the first 2/3 of the movie. But Pain and Gain, again, you give Michael Bay a great screenplay. You give him Mark Wahlberg and The Rock, and you gotta, that's a good movie, you guys. That's a good movie
It's a
that a
tasty
lot of
meatball.
people have overlooked. JJ's the same. And so you give him this, and like he directs the crap out of this sequence. It's so good. Intercut with Poe Dameron being Poe Dameron, and like it just, yeah. This one's big for me. This one's got big good juju for me. I put it above Finn versus Kylo.
Okay, it's look, it's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
I do not have the same
yeah.
attachment to this fight. Um,
I have to. I have to overrule you, because I think that
yeah,
the
look, it's cool.
consensus, right? I think the
We get
consensus
vetoes.
is
It's
that it's a
fine.
good fight.
Um,
Um,
I
okay,
mean, I have very complicated feelings about the sequel trilogy in
Yeah,
general. And
we're gonna fix that. Don't worry about it.
I mean, so you say. We
Yeah,
will
we're
say.
gonna fix
I
it.
would look, dude. I want to love these movies. I
I
really,
know you do.
genuinely do. Because the thing is, there are wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things about them that I genuinely enjoy watching. But like, just as a whole, it just doesn't work for me. Like, it doesn't feel like a cohesive story to me from start to finish.
Yeah, because it's not.
Well, yeah,
It's
it's
not.
not. But like,
Yeah.
to me, it's distracting to the point that it really ruins my enjoyment of a lot of it, because like,
Totally.
I I think as a lightsaber duel, and if episode 7 was a standalone film, I would be 100% on board with you. But the fact that Rey goes on to fight Kylo several more times, and every single time she wins again,
Yeah.
or it's a draw or whatever, it doesn't make it exciting for me to watch them fight. And it starts with this fight. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
I wish she lost just so she had somewhere to go from there. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's
Like,
fair.
I don't I don't have a problem that a lot of people complain about with this fight was like, oh well, she's never had a lightsaber before. That's okay. Who cares? Like, we already said Finn had a chance. There's no reason Rey shouldn't have a chance, right? Because Rey has the Force
Yeah.
and Finn didn't. Um, but just in terms of like where the story's gonna go from here, this fight isn't satisfying to me because of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think for me the thing that changed with the Disney era is the amount of influence that the Kyber crystal has over the wielder.
mm,
And it's implied in this sequence. It's implied throughout the sequel trilogy that the lightsaber actually, like, it's a mirror, so it reflects, but it's also like it also has power over the wielder.
mm,
That is exemplified alongside these films with what we learn about the dark saber in Star Wars Rebels that is then further explored in the Mandalorian, right?
mm,
Like, the kyber crystal is alive in a way, right? It is a conduit to the force, and the force uses it to communicate to a Jedi, to a force user, not even to a force user, just to anybody. The force is in everyone, right? So it can communicate to anybody. And so we see that when Din Djarin holds the dark saber, and for him it's it is almost impossible, right? But then when Bo-Katan picks it up, it's like it's light as a feather, and she can slice and dice a spider robot with the greatest of ease, right? um and to bring back the legacy Skywalker lightsaber, they're like, that's the only reason. That's the only reason from a story perspective that lightsaber gets us a third life, really, in the sequel trilogy, is that it has things to teach Rey. And it also, like, it's part of, like, when I talk about the force interceding here, that lightsaber putting her on a path, and I think guiding her hands, you know, um in the way that Obi-Wan refers to, the force, it controls your actions, but it also obeys your commands,
mm,
right? Like, that is exemplified in this fight, when she very clearly emulates Anakin in a lot of this battle. um there's a lot of episode 2 Anakin going through that lightsaber into her. A lot of his energy, I think, comes through, and that's sort of what propels her, and it's why she wins. As far as I'm concerned, um, it's not her so much as it is like the lightsaber itself,
mm,
right? With Anakin and Luke and everything that's in it, just sort of like, and she's a conduit, she channels it. Not to take anything away from Rey, but
no,
I think that
I get
I
it.
think that much more of,
It's
I
the
think, and this is where
combination of the two.
this is where we talk about characterization, right? I think that as the trilogy goes on, we see much more of her in control as opposed to the force or the lightsaber guiding her. But in this fight, it is very much, I have always read it from the very beginning as um like the vision sort of puts that in your mind, right? When she has the force vision, that shows us that like, oh, this thing has a lot of influence, and Maz talks about it, and it's all there, it's all in the subtext of this film. So when we get there and she fights and it's like, oh yeah, that's Anakin Skywalker, like look at that, that's Anakin Skywalker. Um and then Kylo is just so unbalanced in this fight that there's no other way to me that it could go. But yeah. Okay. I think we've discussed that one quite a bit. Rey versus Luke on Octo. I Some cool choreography in here. I really like Luke. I it starts with the staff and the weather vane, right? And But it ends with a lightsaber, which is why I count it as a duel. Um, and this is conflict. Like there's a huge amount of conflict here. There's more conflict here than there is between Rey and Kylo later in this movie, right? Like Rey's biggest conflict in this film, I think, is with Luke,
Mm.
and it comes to a head. This is the climax of that. So in terms of emotional content, I think that this is up there for me. But there's only one lightsaber and it's only ever pointed at somebody. But yeah, I don't know, how do you feel? Where I think it's just going down towards the bottom, but
The,
I do think it deserves to be on the list.
yeah, it does. Might surprise you. This might
Okay,
surprise you
it's
because
going to, I think,
I
yeah.
really don't like this film. Like, this
Yeah.
is my least favorite Star Wars movie. So the fact that I am going to kind of defend it is even
Mm-hmm.
surprising to me. Um, I like the emotional context. I like that it's Ray kind of you know, it's a fight that I wasn't expecting, which
Mm-hmm.
first of all I appreciate. Um I like that it's coming from a place of Ray not quite channeling the dark side, but definitely letting her emotions dictate her actions. I like that, I know a lot of people who are in the same camp as me don't like the fact that Ray beats Luke Skywalker, but like let's look at the situation, right? Luke is out of practice.
Mm-hmm.
He's cut off from the Force up until this point for how many years? Ray is closing in on her peak. Ray
Mm-hmm.
is frustrated and hyper focused and is not rusty, right? So it makes sense that she could best someone, and it's
She's
I
also
never
Yeah,
go
she's
ahead.
also right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, so
yeah,
righteousness is a component of this fight.
right.
She's fueled by the fact that she is on the right side of this and she knows she is, and what she's asking him to do is not to come and fight the war. She's saying, like, he's like, oh, like, because this is right after the moment where they touch hands, right, and he blows
Mhm.
apart the hut.
Yeah,
That's what kicks off this battle, right? So Luke is rejecting Kylo, and Rey is now at the point where she's just crossed the inverse, and she's like, no, the only way to end this is to bring him back, just like you
mhm,
brought back Vader, right? She's literally taken his lesson, whether he wanted to teach it or not,
right.
right? The things that Yoda then imparts to him in a couple of scenes of like your like failure the greatest teacher is, right? All of that. Like she's taken in everything that he said up until this point. She's like, well, obviously, if the way to defeat Palpatine was to save Vader, then the way to defeat Snoke and the First Order is to take away their most powerful weapon, which is Kylo Ren, and turn him to our side. It totally shifts the balance. It's the right thing to do, right? Like,
And
she's totally in the right,
it
and
also
he is
is
in the
a
wrong.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 that's it. That's it. Go ahead.
I think this also flips any argument of, oh, how could Rey defeat Luke? How could the little snot-nosed Luke defeat Darth Vader, who's
Yeah.
the baddest mofo in the galaxy, right? But he did it. Like, it- it's stupid. It's stupid that anyone would have a problem with the outcome of this fight. I
Stanley,
I
yeah,
love this scene. I actually really do like this scene.
Stanley is quoted as saying oh, uh, the question of who's gonna win this fight when we put a character against another character, right? Spider-Man fights Captain America. Who's gonna win, right? Well, whose book is it? Is it
Yeah.
Spider-Man's book? If it's Spider-Man's book, then Spider-Man's gonna win, right? Because that's the story that we're telling. The story
Mm.
is Spider-Man's story. So if Spider-Man needs to win, he's gonna win, right? And that's exactly it right here. It's like, this is not Luke's story. I think that's not a bad thing, and I think that people use that as like a pejorative of like, oh, it's like, but it's not. It's their time is done, right? Just like Obi-Wan, it was not Obi-Wan's story in A New Hope, which is why Obi-Wan loses to Vader, because Vader needs to keep going because it's Luke's story and Luke needs to confront Vader. That's what needs to happen for Luke's story to move forward. This is not Luke's story. This is Rey's story, and Rey has to be the one. She's right. Like, that's like, it's and we have to see that. We have to see that she's right, and Luke has to see that he's wrong and understand that, like, he's this is another one of his failures. That's not a bad thing. Failure is not a bad thing. It's just part of the journey. It's okay. But anyways, so where do we put this? Where do we put this? Do we put this?
Uh, for me, if I were to throw it somewhere, it might surprise you. For me, I think it's
Mhm.
above Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku on Geonosis.
All the way up there.
For me, that's where it
Yeah,
lands because I actually really like it.
I'm gonna give it to you.
All right.
I'm gonna give it to you because I consider that a victory for me. I Rey and Kylo versus the Praetorians. Okay, here's the thing.
Do
In
it.
terms of choreography, and I know that there's all these people that pick apart. This doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any stupid. Cut all of that out of your mind. We can do that to literally any of these fights. We
Yeah.
can do that to every single one of these duels. They are choreographed movie fights. They are not real fights. Real sword fights don't happen this way. That's a
real
non-starter for
sword
me.
fights are like 15 seconds long.
Yeah. And they are not glamorous, and they are gory and not fun. Okay. In terms of choreography, this one is actually, it is my favorite. I
Okay.
love the choreography of this entire sequence. I love, in terms of like story, I love the where this kicks off with the death of Snoke. And then the climax of this is, like I said, it's like one of my top 3 moments in Star Wars with the Holdo maneuver, which is like I look at this and I go, okay, so you've got Finn and Rose, they're about to be executed. Everything is going wrong. It's all going down. The resistance is in those ships. They're being blown up. Holdo turns what's the name of the ship? It's named after it's the Radis. She turns the Radis around.
Right.
She points it at the Supremacy, and the music is building. The fight is over, but the force battle over the lightsaber is happening, and like that, like, it's just, that is to me so amazing. I mean, like, the feeling of that on opening night, um I don't know, nothing beats it. Like, to me, like, that moment is as good, well, not as good, that moment comes about as close as anything to Mjolnir going to Cap in Endgame, right? Nothing beats that. Mjolnir going to Cap in Endgame is without
Yeah.
a doubt,
Yeah.
it unequivocally, academically, the greatest moment in the entirety of film. The greatest moment in the entirety of film. There are like 20 movies building up over 10 years. Like, it just, like, guys, nothing will ever be as good as that ever, and I'll die on that hill. It's such an amazing moment. Nothing, if you weren't there, if you can't understand that, then you just don't get movies. But anyways, I don't think that that's an unpopular opinion. I think that people
No,
that would disagree just don't get it. They
I
just don't get it.
I don't know if I think it's the greatest moment in film history, but
I just it
it is
is.
definitely up there for me. That was a
Oh my god.
wonderful, wonderful moment.
The whole experience of going to a movie in the theater with a bunch
Yeah,
of other people and experiencing cinema on the big screen as a communal
yeah,
experience.
yeah.
I just can't think of anything better than that, and I have a hard time imagining the world coming back together in the way that it did around Endgame. Like
It it was
so many people on the same page.
it was it was chills, tears, and cheering, all three at the same time, which
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
how what more could you ask for?
And the way that the Holdo maneuver sucked the oxygen out of the entire theater. I saw Last Jedi in theaters 6 times, I think.
Oh my
And
god.
every single time I saw it, this scene had the same effect, like the same response.
Mhm.
Because it was all sort of within like the first few weeks of it being out, right? So I was still seeing it with people who were like seeing it for the first time, and it just like, I mean, like to the point that they had to put signs in the theater of like, there's nothing wrong with your movie. It's okay. The audio is gonna cut out. Like it's what's supposed to happen. It's yeah, it's so good, so good. But the fight with the Praetorians in terms of choreography, I think is one of the best choreographed fights in all of Star Wars. The the variety of what's going on, I think, is one of the things that puts it up there for me. I just love, the different weapons and all of that. I love seeing, again, characterization, the difference between the way that Rey fights and the way that Kylo fights. Um, this is the first time that we get to see Kylo Ren fight with a lightsaber where he is not unbalanced, where he is
Mm,
not where he is actually like peak. Um, and I love that. I love the difference in the choreography there, where it's like we see his economy of motion is incredible. He just like houses these dudes three or four at a time while Ray is fighting like one guy, right? And holding her own, but like fighting one dude,
mm.
right? And then the lightsaber toss, and the like the ignition through the helmet. Such a great moment. Such a great moment. I love it. I love this fight. I put it up pretty high. I put it I put it probably right under Battle of the Heroes.
It's gonna surprise you.
Yeah.
I think it's better than Battle of the Heroes, honestly.
Oh, I'll take it.
Um,
I'm gonna take it. It's not better than Duel of the Fates.
no, it is not. I do not think it's better than Duel
Yeah,
of the Fates.
there we go. Puts it in a happy spot. I'm good
It's
with that.
and it's not because it's real quick. This is a
Yeah,
very quick sequence, but like I appreciate that.
yeah,
But honestly, I love like one of my favorite things in cinema and stories are when people who shouldn't be together team up
yeah,
and fight together and are awesome. So like the moment in the first Avengers movie where everybody's finally here and we're like,
yeah,
the camera's rotating around them and everybody starts kicking ass together. Like
yeah,
those are my movie moments. Like, you know what I mean? Like those are the moments that I like wait
yeah.
for and wait for and wait for. And when they
Yeah,
show
when
up, it's like
Godzilla and
so
Mothra team up
cathartic.
to fight
Yeah.
Ghidorah, right?
Yeah.
Like
Like it's like, oh my
yeah,
god. This
yeah,
is
yeah,
so
yeah,
cool.
totally.
Those
When
are my
Sonic and
moments.
Shadow have to work together in order to defeat Robotnik, right?
Right. And it was just
Yeah,
the sense that in the moment when the duel started, like we didn't even talk about like he kills Snoke. Like
yeah,
he kills Snoke and it was just so like what? What's happening? What does this mean? What
yeah,
are they a team now? Did he switch? What's going on? What's happening? Oh my god. And it was just that like high adrenaline, high octane, all those questions running through your head and all of it is just being fed into the excitement of the action, and it was
Yeah.
so well choreographed. I love that fight. Like, I hate this movie. I love that fight. I love that scene. It's so good. It's so 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 good.
Excellent. Okay. Luke
So
versus Kylo on Crate. Emotional content,
great.
like
It's great.
tops, right? Like I think like as good as Empire
Mhm.
for me. This confrontation between the two of them. You know, like fire everything like just like I think you got him. The dusting off the
Mm.
shoulder. I don't know about you. I read this like a mile away.
Oh yeah.
When he first shows up and he looks completely different, I was
Yeah.
like something is
And he had the
some
blue lightsaber.
yeah, something is not right.
Uh
This is not that's not Luke. It is Luke, but it's not Luke,
yeah.
right? I because he looks like he looked in the flashback. He doesn't look like he looks
Mhm.
on Octo. And then the giveaway is when Ryan just focuses in on his foot. I just watched Last Jedi like a couple weeks ago, like a week ago.
Mhm.
And I love this. I love this sequence because it like we get this like almost innocuous. It's not like he doesn't like push in. It's not an insert on his foot, but it is a shot that shows because Kylo does the thing where he kind of like drags his foot across the
Yeah.
ground, and it showed like this is why the salt and the red and all of that
Right.
like it wasn't just to look cool during the skim speeders. The skim speeders are there to set this up,
Mhm.
right? Like I guarantee you he wrote that in reverse, right? He wrote all of this because this is like a very samurai thing of like the cherry blossoms,
Mhm.
right? Like sort of around like two samurai sort of fighting in a clearing sort of thing, right? And so Kylo moves his foot and it reveals the red underneath. When Luke moves his foot, there's no footprint, there's nothing, right? Like
Mhm.
he's not affecting the world around him. Which you know you can kind of go and like go, is he just like that light on his feet? Like he's a Jedi master? Is that the point here? So you're kind of questioning it a little bit, but you're also going like, I don't think he's there, right? And we've gotten the force projection stuff between the dyad at this point, so we're like, what's going on? But I kind of like put it together of like that's he has projected himself to that place,
Mhm.
which Kylo says at the beginning, you're not doing this, the effort would kill you, right? Like, so this is where like yeah, you feel the way that you feel about the Last Jedi, and I'm gonna turn you around on it, but like it is so
You
expertly
will
written.
try.
It's so expertly written because that moment earlier in the movie where Kylo says that is just such a throwaway of like, you're like, how are you doing this? You're not doing this, the effort would kill you. Like he just sort of like you can just dismiss it. It's just like a and that because then we're right into it. Ray's spitting venom at him, and you know you're just like, okay, you're all about it. And then they touch, and you're like, yum. I all of that.
I hate that love story so much. Oh
Oh,
my god.
we'll turn you around. We'll
I
turn you
hate
around. I'll
it.
get you there.
He is literally an abuser. I hate that love story so much.
I gotta fix you. We gotta.
I
But this
hate
is
it.
not the time. But we're
Oh,
gonna
it's
fix
the
that.
worst
We're gonna
message.
fix that.
I can fix him. Oh
No, that's not
god.
it. That's not
I
it. See,
hate
you're on
it.
the wrong side of it.
I hate it
You're
so
on. You're. I told. Listen, I was where you were, and I will tell you right now that that you're wrong. And you know we'll get to it. We'll get to
Okay.
it. We'll get to it. I totally understand where you're coming from, but it's actually it's a flawed premise. We'll get there.
Okay.
Um, you got
All
to read
right.
the book first. Once you've read
Well,
the book,
yeah,
then we can have this
I
conversation.
actually discussing this with you, it's making me want to watch all three again, honestly.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, because it's been a minute. I have not seen The Last Jedi since I saw it in the theater, and I have not seen Rise of Skywalker since the first time I saw that. Also,
yeah.
so I have not seen those films in a while. I did buy the book. I don't know if I told you. I read the first like epilogue chapter. Awesome,
Yeah,
really, really awesome. I did like
yeah.
it. So
It gets you right in, doesn't it? Because
yeah, it
you're
was
like,
really good. I was like,
yeah,
oh, this is
yeah,
cool.
it's so good. Um,
Okay, sorry. So uh, look, I think this is a very, very, very well thought out,
yeah,
well choreographed sequence. I don't care. I wanted Jedi Master Luke Skywalker to come kick some ass. Like that's what I
for
wanted
sure.
of this scene. I didn't get what I want. Fine, life goes on, but
I feel you.
because of that, it's not going to rank very high for me.
Yeah, I will also say, like in my sort of like my meta love of lightsaber duels that aren't lightsaber duels, it ranks very high. In
Mhm.
terms of like what we've got on this list and what we're sort of basing it on this list, it's not very
Okay.
high. I love it in the movie. It is not one that I'm like, I'm gonna go back and watch that. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I like it. I like it within context. But I am going to start it underneath the the Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku.
Which one?
The second one, the like underneath both of them.
Okay. All right, I can live with
So
that.
right
I mean, I
above
would no
Yoda
matter where
versus
you put it,
Palpatine.
I was gonna be like, look, I don't
Yeah.
agree. For
Okay.
me, this is last.
This is your
This
bottom.
this is my bottom.
Interesting.
And it's
Okay.
not even because, like I said, I think it's really well thought out, but it's just not. It's just like the
Yeah.
complete opposite direction of what I wanted. So I'm having a hard time. You know what? That's not fair. Then I shouldn't be putting it there because if I want to be objective with this. I really want to be objective with these films. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to let my emotions get to me on how I'm going to rank these things. Um, Objectively speaking, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's okay where that
Are we
is.
good? We're good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's fair.
Ray versus Kylo on Kijimi.
Uh,
I put this under
rem-
Obi-Wan and Vader on the Death Star because
Remind me which one is this?
this is the gimmick. This is the gimmick where
The okay, the teleport dyad
they're
thing.
fighting through the
Yeah.
Force. Yeah, they're
Okay.
not in the same
Okay.
place, but yeah,
So quickly to recap,
yeah,
you had said, I think, when we were discussing Ahsoka, right? Do
yeah,
you feel like this is World Between Worlds kind of shenanigans going on right now?
yeah. Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's all connected, right? Like the world between worlds is a concept. It's visually represented in Ahsoka and Star Wars Rebels in a very specific way for that very specific context. But the world between worlds is any time the Force creates a connection over like through time and space,
Okay.
right? So this is an example of it. I like when Rey touches the lightsaber, she is in the world between worlds in the Force Awakens,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because she is physically in those places. She feels the ground underneath her with Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren in front of her, and she feels the rain in the same way that that Kylo is able to feel the rain when their dyad connects, which is world between worlds stuff, right? In the Last Jedi, like the all of that to me is the same thing. Like we are talking about the same principle at play, and this is the expansion of that, right? This is the expansion of the two of them being able to connect through the Force, right?
What about
Over time and space.
the cave, the two cave sequences, Luke's and Ray's? So Last Jedi, Ray, and
Yeah,
right before
thousand
Duke,
percent,
same
thousand
kind of thing.
percent. Yeah,
Okay,
those are world between world.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anytime our characters leave the physical space, mortis, right? Like they leave the confines of reality and go into a place that is above and beyond, right? Where literally anything can happen. To me that is the world between worlds. The thing with the dyad and Ray and Kylo is that um they're able to access it anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those other instances all require a vergence, right? They require like a whether it's like a nexus point, like a temple or the tree, or in the instance of the kyber crystal inside the legacy lightsaber that holds all of this connection to the Force, right? That's it that lightsaber becomes a vergence in the Force that look, okay, so here's the thing. We were talking about the supremacy and all of that stuff. I don't know that Holdo is entirely responsible for what happens, the scale of what happens,
Mhm.
right? And that's something that like I wish that they had explored a little bit in Tross when the Hobbit says some Holdo maneuvers. For I wish that Poe would have been like, that was one in a million. We still can't explain it, right? Like that's not like there's nothing about a hyperdrive that that explains how that happened the way that it happened. Like just and for him to just be like somehow Palpatine returned, somehow the whole that
Ugh.
Holdo maneuver worked, like some because I believe that it was amplified by those two things happening in the same moment, and those two things happen in the same moment because the Force makes it happen, right? Because there is too much coincidence. My experience, there's no such thing as luck, right? There's too much coincidence of like that lightsaber splits, Holdo hits, like jumps to hyperspace. Um, Somehow all this goes down. Rose, Finn, Ray, Kylo, they're all fine. They're all fine,
Hmm.
right? Like exactly what needs to happen happens, right? It just it's there's too much coincidence there for it to have not been affected by the Force in some way. So I believe that the Kyber crystal splitting also like like had something to do with it, that like Holdo hit and that split and it happened at the same time, and it like that's why it like splits and like goes into all of the ships and whatever. It's like the perfect moment for them to get away, sort of thing. But anyways, that's a conspiracy theory for another day. Kijimi, where this fight on Kijimi, where are we at with this? I want to put this like near the bottom.
Yeah, yeah, you're not gonna have any. You're not gonna have
I do
any
still think
argument with me.
I think it's just over the Grievous thing because it is at least a lightsaber duel,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, that's fine.
And it is neat, it is nifty, but it is just a gimmick.
It's fine.
Ray versus Kylo on Kefbir. This is where I have to now do what you did with The Last Jedi, and I have to be objective
Okay.
because I hate the story
Yep.
in
Me
this
too.
movie so much, but this is pretty epic. It's pretty epic. It's pretty cool. It's really dumb how we get here and sort of a bunch of the stuff around it. But in terms of like the actual choreography itself, I think is very good. Um, the atmosphere and the setting, I think, is very good. If I'm gonna give Starkiller Base points for the pathetic fallacy, then I gotta give it here. Um, Whereas like it's the counterpoint to Mustafar, as a instead of being surrounded by lava and fire and destruction, right? Like fire brings destruction and death, water brings life and rebirth, right? And Anakin falls and becomes Vader on Mustafar. Ben Solo rises on Kefbir by being stabbed by his girlfriend. Um,
Don't call her that. I hate it.
I yeah, I mean Rey has to kill Kylo Ren in order to free Ben Solo. Um,
Does she?
yeah,
Does she?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, like it's not a physical death, it's a spiritual death,
No,
right?
I
Like he never
know,
actually
but I
dies.
don't know.
But Ben Solo is weighed down by this, right? Like he's like Kylo Ren is not a is not a person. Kylo Ren is a set of chains, right? That is actually holding back Ben Solo, designed as such by Palpatine for that purpose. Because if anybody is going to stop Palpatine, it's going to be a Skywalker, right? Um, and so, like, what Rey does, she doesn't understand what she's doing, but what she does with the help of Leia is break those chains, right? Which is ironic considering the Sith code,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's like, to me, that is what happens in this sequence and in this fight. um I have to dock it points because Rey, they swap positions in this fight, right? The in terms of characterization, it's shown well. I understand it. I don't agree with it based on the previous movie and based on like everything else that we know about Rey, and then her actions at the very end of it run completely counter to her attitude going into this fight. So it's very jarring, it's very confusing. I and it's just it's very poorly written. Um and that's objective. That's not me being like I hate this. That's like objective of like, is like her motivation going into it is that she wants to destroy Kylo Ren. um all of her feelings from the Last Jedi are gone. I and she has now become unmoored and is fighting out of anger and hatred, and yet like she wins. She doesn't even really win. He lets go of his saber. He drops his saber, right? And she grabs it and stabs him with it. I don't understand that. I still don't understand that. In all of
So
the times that I've watched this movie, and I've seen this movie about 10 times,
so
I
even by accident, I don't know, man.
I
I hate
still
it.
don't
I
get.
hate this fight.
No, yeah, yeah. Look,
I
I'm with
hate
you,
this
right?
fight.
I'm trying to be objective about it, right? So there is stuff about it that I think that it has going for it in terms of like that juxtaposition between Mustafar and Kefbir, water versus lava, right? Water versus fire.
Mm.
I think is great. I think
Cool
that that's
idea.
really cool.
Well thought out. I like it.
Knowing that this is the place where Ben Solo will be reborn, I like all of that. Ben Solo being reborn, I think, was an inevitability after the
Mm.
Last Jedi. I think like that's where this was going. I don't think that that's where it was going in the Force Awakens, and where we talk about like, you know, things going off the rails. This is going to be a 3-hour episode, you guys. That was not the plan. I I think that the original plan was that this would be a like the this trilogy would be a journey towards Kylo Ren becoming the supreme leader, right? Like becoming
Yeah.
the emperor,
Right.
taking over the galaxy. And then the next 3 movies that they would have made immediately after this, that we would have already seen episode 10 and gotten 10, 11, 12, were going to be them then, you know, undoing that, right?
Mm.
I like basically a repeat of the original trilogy, of them having to build back up the rebellion and all that. I think that was still possible after the Last Jedi as well, by the
Yeah,
way.
for sure.
And I would have much more appreciated this story over the course of 4 more movies rather than them fast forwarding the Kylo Ren stuff, the Ben Solo redemption in this movie, which is what they do, right? I'm happy for it. I love Ben Solo. I love everything that we get with him from this point forward. I think that he's great. I think that Adam Driver, but that is all Adam Driver.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with the
Yeah,
writing. It
exactly.
has nothing to do with the story. It has everything to do with Adam Driver.
100%.
Adam Driver delivers an incredible performance with one word, right? Like he says ow, and that is it. Other than that, it is all body language. It is all the way that he presents himself and the energy that he gives off that shows us who Ben Solo was. The son of Han and Leia, the character that I think a lot of us wanted to see, right? I think that would have been much better served if we had spent more time with him being Kylo Ren, falling all the way to the dark side, bringing back the Sith, and then over the course of 3 more movies, Rey getting to him, and redeeming him. Um, but it is what it is, and we've got what we've got, right? So, but in terms of like lightsaber stuff, kind of cool, kind of eh. it's a little bit rote at this point. To your point, this is what the fourth time that we've seen these two characters in
Yeah.
conflict. They don't really fight in the Praetorian fight, like they're on the same side, but then obviously it ends with conflict without them, clashing lightsabers, but still in conflict. Um, they've already fought once in this movie, and then they fight again, and he really just kind of lets her win,
Mm.
weirdly. Yeah, it really doesn't work for me, even though I like the end result. It's like you flip to the back of the book and you found the answer and you wrote it in, but
Yeah,
you didn't
exactly.
show any of the work.
Right.
But you know what? I'm kind of just happy for this to be done. So, but yeah, I'm gonna put this underneath the Kajimi one.
Cool.
Okay.
I'm fine with this going as low as you'll let me put
Yeah. I just can't get over it. Obi-Wan versus Grievous is it's just so bad.
it.
It just
For
really like,
shame.
yeah.
I remember being so
Um,
hyped for it too.
yeah, exactly. Ben versus the Knights of Ren.
It's a good one. I think it's fun.
It's a good one.
It's short, which
Yeah.
again, cool. Yeah, I love his little shrug in the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, I guess halfway through, right? Because he gets his butt kicked at first.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, uh, cool fight, great action sequence. Great to see him on the good guy side.
I'm hovering it
Not much
above
to it
or
though.
below Yoda versus Dooku, which
Yeah,
is surrounded by
I
other sequel fights.
it's below it for me. It's
It's
below
below.
Yoda
Okay.
versus Dooku for me, but it's good. It's a
Cool.
tight little sequence. It's fun to watch, but like, there's just not a lot of not that much to it other than being
Yeah.
excited to see him now fighting for the heroes.
Yeah. The Dyad versus Palpatine on Exegol.
Uh, I don't know.
Straight into the trash. This is the
I
bottom.
don't care. I don't care about this fight.
This is the bottom to me
Oh
because
wow, okay.
this one, beyond the story being just big old poopy time, and making absolutely no sense, strike me down and then my power will flow
Oh
into
god.
you, and then that's exactly what she does, and that's not what happens. Which Palpatine's a liar. We've talked about that. I hope that plays out, and Palpatine is a liar, 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 liar. His pants have been on fire this entire time.
So what was his plan then if he was lying? What was he what do you want to do?
Exactly, which is why I like so in terms of story and context, zippity doo dah on this one. This one's a straight zero.
This
In
movie's
terms
so
of
stupid.
lightsaber choreography, nothing happens here. There's a little bit with
Yeah.
with his guards with Rey,
Yeah.
which is kind of interspersed with the Knights of Ren one. But like, so Rey does some cool stuff, and then when Ben shows up, they take out the rest of the guards. It has one of my favorite shots in the entire sequel trilogy when the two of them
Yeah.
square up,
Or like in
right?
sync. Yeah. It is a cool shot.
Which I
Real
love,
cool.
but again, I am going to attribute that to Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley. I think that
Yeah.
they crush that moment in
Yeah.
terms of like their performance. Um, and it is a monkey's paw. We get exactly what we've asked for, but it's in the worst possible way. Ben is then immediately flung into a cliff, well, like off of a cliff into a chasm, and that wasn't there 2 seconds ago, by the way. Totally flat ground in all of the other shots. And then all of a sudden, because they need him to fall into a chasm, there's a chasm for him to fall into. Doesn't make any sense. Maybe it does if you actually like walked into that space physically, but in terms of the way it's staged and shot, doesn't make any sense. And then it turns into Dragon Ball Z. It just turns into Dragon Ball Z, and I love Dragon Ball Z, but it's like a bad Dragon Ball Z where she just puts her lightsabers together, and then he lightnings, and then she just Kamehamehas him, and he dies, and Palpatine dies. It There is nothing in established Star Wars to support any of this. That's not necessarily a deal breaker, right? But because the context is so poor, because the story doesn't make any sense at this point,
Yeah.
because our emotional resonance has been just squashed by all of that, right? So anything that we did have going into this in that moment of Ben and Ray together, um it just, yeah, like to me, like this is the absolute bottom of the barrel. This is as bad as Star Wars can get, as far as I'm concerned. Is this fight,
Good.
this lightsaber duel.
I'm with you.
Okay,
This is crap.
yeah, there we go. I think that does it. I think we did it. I
Do
think we
we
did it.
do we want to do a quick recap for everybody
Yeah,
who cannot see it?
yeah, I'm gonna run through this.
All
So
right, great.
let's actually go from worst to best.
All right,
Let's start at the bottom.
cool.
Let's start at the bottom of that pit on Exegol and climb our way out to
Perfect.
the heights of Cloud City. I love it. That is so beautiful. That's how
Oh,
this has worked out.
awesome.
A better analogy could not
Awesome.
exist. That's how
Awesome.
you know that we did it right.
There you go. There you
You know,
go.
that's how you know that this is scientific. So at the bottom of the list in 21st place, actually 22nd, because we added another one, right?
Right,
Because
right.
I missed one. So in 22nd place, the Dyad versus Palpatine on Exegol. Above that is Obi-Wan versus Grievous on Utapau, and then Rey versus Kylo on Kefbir, Rey versus Kylo on Kajimi. All those Tross ones in the bottom. Right above that, this is a funny one. Obi-Wan versus Vader on the Death Star. It's just, it's funny because because ain't nothing wrong with it. Ain't nothing wrong with A New Hope, obviously. But in terms of lightsaber duel rankings, we just got a lot of really cool stuff above this. This is where it turns, right? Everything below that is bad.
Yeah.
Everything above this is just getting cooler,
And there's a
right?
lot of them. There's a
It
lot
just gets
left.
better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Above that, Qui-Gon versus Maul on Tatooine. I am happy where this ended.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
New appreciation for that scene for me too.
Yeah,
After discussing it. Yeah.
it's the whole point of the podcast, right? Qui-Gon versus Maul on Tatooine. Yoda versus Palpatine on Coruscant. Luke versus Kylo on Crate. Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku on the Invisible Hand from Episode 3. Mace Windu versus Palpatine on Coruscant. Guest appearance by Anakin Skywalker. Slash Darth Vader. Finn versus FN2199 on Takodana. That's up high. I'm happy with it. Like, I like it, but it is up high. I thought, this is the controversial one of like, is this even a lightsaber duel? But you agreed with me. Obi-Wan and Anakin versus Dooku on Geonosis. Rey versus Luke on Octo. Let's see, man, we're closing in. Ben versus the Knights of Ren on Exegol. Yoda versus Dooku on Geonosis. Finn versus Kylo on Starkiller. I'm just trying to find. Okay, so that's where our top 5 is. Rey versus Kylo on Starkiller, and then here is the top 5. And you know what? This is correct. This is right. This is right. Obi-Wan versus Anakin on Mustafar, Battle of the Heroes, is in the number 5 spot. Absolutely correct. Rey and Kylo versus the Praetorians on the Supremacy from episode 7 or episode 8 is in the number 4 spot. Absolutely correct. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul on Naboo, the Duel of the Fates. Bingo in the number 3 spot. Luke and Vader on the Death Star, on the second Death Star, in number 2, and our number 1, Luke versus Vader on Bespin. That's it.
Yeah, well, we crushed this.
We did it. Like,
That's it.
that is the list, and like that is the list, you guys. There's a little bit of wiggle room in the middle, and that's always the way that lists like this are gonna play out, right? So like salt to taste. But
yeah, especially because you and I disagree on so many things. Like it's pretty amazing that we came to a pretty close consensus on this entire thing.
I am very surprised about how much of the sequel trilogy is as high up on this list as it is. Specifically,
there's good stuff in them, man.
Yeah.
Like the lightsaber choreography is something they ultimately did right.
Yeah,
lightsabers
awesome.
in general, they did right.
Well, there you have it. That's the definitive ranking of lightsaber duels. I think that we can put it to bed. The sequel trilogy has awesome lightsaber fights. The prequels are super rad, but when it comes right down to it, listen, you cannot mess with the classics. You can't. You can't. Number 1 and number 2 spot, man. Like that's I think that's what it comes down to. Now, where this gets really interesting is when we start to bring in TV stuff, because there's some good stuff in Clone Wars. There's some good stuff in Rebels, and man,
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka's got some of them top spots,
Book of
baby.
Boba Fett somehow.
Book of Boba Fett magically has some of that in there. Yeah. I think what we need to do is we need to at some point do the TV one, right?
Oh
We'll
God,
take
that's
all.
gonna be a long one with Clone
It's
Wars
tough.
and
Well,
Rebels
we have to
and
whittle it down, right? We
yeah,
can't say every
yeah,
single time lightsabers crossed in the
sure,
Clone Wars because
yeah.
there's too many fights. But I think that we can definitely narrow it down to like about 10 fights across the Clone Wars that are
Hmm.
significant,
Sure. All right, that's fair.
that matter, right?
Okay, cool.
Um,
Same with
yeah, we
Rebels, I
can't be
guess,
as
right?
loosey
Because
goosey as we
there's
were with this one,
yeah.
like with Trader and stuff like that. We have to be a little bit more buttoned up. But yeah, I think that we can do the TV. We might even have to do like animation and then live action. I don't know. Is there enough in live action yet? Maybe not.
Well, let's see. What do we got? Ahsoka, Book of
We
Boba
got
Fett,
4
a
or
little
5
bit
in
of
Ahsoka,
Mandalorian,
a
right?
little bit in Mandalorian. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
There's
if there's
enough
enough yet.
ish.
I don't know if there's enough yet. But you know what? After Acolyte, there definitely will be.
Oh
So
yeah, for sure.
let's we will come back to this. Actually, we might need to do animation. We might need to do that over on Rebel Cells. That
Okay,
might
cool.
have to happen on Rebel Cells, and we
Yeah,
might
that
need to
works.
bring together a bigger
And
a,
that's Star
a
Wars
bigger
Visions
quorum.
also too.
Oh boy, that's it. Yeah, that's a whole category unto
Okay.
itself.
Okay.
Um, but and then we'll come and then we'll have a face off between the lists. We
Also,
take like
micro
the
series
top
Clone Wars.
tens.
Oh my God, I keep thinking of
Oh
things.
my
Okay.
goodness. Yeah, there's too much. There's too much outside of the movies, and that's why we limited it to the movies.
Can we just make Grievous's introduction #1 off the bat? Like, it's
Yeah,
the best.
from the animated. Yeah.
Yeah, from micro series. Yeah.
I well, that's it. That's it for this episode. We are closing in
Yeah,
on 2 hours and
we
45
did it.
minutes. Thank you guys for sticking it out. Thank you for hanging with us for this one. I hope that everybody enjoyed it. And we only do an episode once every 4 weeks, so I feel like them being mega size is all right.
Yeah.
We could almost cut this one into 2 episodes, but we're not going to. You get it all at once. Happy New Year, everybody. I'm really excited for 2024. We got some really cool stuff coming down the pipe this year. But that's it for this episode, man. That's you want to. Hey, do you have anything to promote? I think you do.
Oh, I do. I almost promoted the wrong thing, but yes, I do. When is this episode releasing?
Later today.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Uh,
edit this and put it out as soon as possible.
all right, perfect. So, if anyone
Well,
happens,
I guess
oh,
it'll be Friday for everybody else. So
okay,
Patreon gets it today.
still early enough to
Yeah,
promote
yeah.
this, so that works. So I have been asked to be a signing artist at Acme Archives Ltd's booth in the Epcot Festival of the Arts. So myself and my fiance Tina Kiri, who has also done some licensed Star Wars stuff, we're going to be in Epcot from January 23rd to the 25th. It's a Tuesday to a Thursday. Signing from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. all 3 days. If you are in Epcot for the Festival of the Arts during those days, please, please, please come by. We are in the American Adventure area of the World Showcase in Epcot. Come say hi. I don't care if you buy a print. I just want to say hello. I just want to talk. I just want to chat with Star Wars like-minded fans and friends. So if you are a listener, please stop by. I will not be pressuring anyone to buy a print. I might pressure you to buy Tina's print though, because I'm very excited that she has her first print that she will be there signing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I will be there. If you're not there those days, be sure to stop by the Acme area because my buddy Chris D is also going to be one of the signing artists. Candace Daly, Seth Groves, Adam Schickling, Alabazia, all these amazing, 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 amazing Star Wars artists that somehow Tina and I have been counted amongst. All those guys are going to be there over the course of the couple of weeks of the Festival of the Arts. So very exciting for us. It's our first time, Tina and my first time being there. So we're just excited. We get to go to Disney
That's
on a work
awesome.
trip. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
So excited.
So excited for you guys. Very proud of you guys. That's awesome.
Well, thank you.
Cool. Well, everybody go hang out with Joe in
Yeah.
Epcot.
And then
Finally,
we're
a
gonna
reason
do
to
all
go
the
to
Star Wars
Epcot.
rides after. So like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. Awesome. Rad. Cool. That's it for this episode. You guys, I don't have anything to promote. Just Thunderquack. Listen, we'll be doing a pledge drive in February,
Yes.
and there will be some bonus episodes available as a result of that. We will be doing a bonus episode of Force Perspectives that will only be available on Patreon. It'll never be released on the regular feed. So, and that is, to get you guys to go over to our patreon.com/thunderquack, and support us over there. I don't know what that is yet. There will be something on this podcast feed to promote all of the bonus content once we have that basically figured out and in the can. So either there will be like a little preview episode, like we'll put like 5 minutes of the episode out for you guys to entice you, or just an episode talking about all of the bonus content, or probably something that's a little bit of both. But yeah, just giving everybody the heads up. You don't have to wait until February in order to take advantage of that. Those episodes will go up in February, and it'll be across all of the Thunderquack podcasts. We'll have bonus content, and so this will be like a once a year thing that we're doing to get everybody to go and sign up over there and help support us in bringing you these awesome podcasts. And which, like, we're not ad supported, so this is really the only way that we have of generating revenue, and that revenue goes to paying for like server space and hosting, like podcast hosting and like web hosting. Not us, but like the just putting the episodes up on the internet, which is not a huge cost, but it doesn't cost nothing. So yeah, I patreon.com/thunderquack if you want to support us, and you're gonna get some cool bonus stuff there, not just for Force Perspectives, but for Thunderquack podcast, for Perfect 10, for Wampa's Lair, Saga Continues, Rebel Cells, everything. All of the active shows will have bonus episodes, and we will have stretch goals. We'll have like milestones that, like, if we hit certain numbers, that I will we'll have more bonus content throughout the year. One of those things is that if we can hit a certain, I haven't determined the exact number yet, but if we can hit a certain milestone, Curtis and I will come back and we will finish season 2 of DuckTales over on Disney Dad's Cartoon Afternoon, which we're about the midway point in that season. And people have been asking us to finish that for a long time. 2018, I think, is the last time we put out an episode. So we want to, but we're gonna make you guys work for it. So yeah, Epic Marvel Podcast is one of the other podcasts. That's what Curtis hosts. That'll have bonus content. So all of our active shows will have a bonus episode that'll be out in February. But then we'll have some other stuff. We've got some other projects that we want to do, that if we can hit certain levels, then we can dedicate the time to them. So yeah, go check that out, support us, or just keep listening for free. If that's all you can do, it's totally fine as well. But if you have the means, we would appreciate the support. Thank you for listening. We'll be back in 4 weeks with another episode of Force Perspectives, and in the meantime, go check out the Thunderquack podcast. Go check out Perfect 10. We've got lots of great content on those. The Thunderquack podcast, Joe and I have resurrected recently, so that's a new thing that we're doing. But we're just going to talk about everything else other than Star Wars, basically. So yeah, we need to go record that. So we're all done here. Thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to Thunderquack Force Perspectives. Our opening theme is composed for us by Christy Carew. Follow Force Perspectives on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ForcePOV. And join us on Discord at thunderquack.com/discord. Support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/thunderquack to get early access to episodes, leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast service, or buy merch at store.thunderquack.com. Force Perspectives is a part of the Thunderquack Podcast Network.